All right, and start recording in three, two, and one. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show, soccer podcast covering all things in the EPL from a bench perspective. But it is the summer now, and well, we have USA action, which we're going to get into. It did not go the way that we all would have wanted, though. That said, some of it could have been predictable, but then again, there were circumstances to why the U.S. were not able to get out of the group, and then I think a broader discussion has since come out, at least in the U.S. Soccer community, and I embrace it. I like the idea of it broadening out a little bit because it's not just about who manages us. Though Greg Berhalter does deserve a lot of the blame here. There's been Fox was going after the players. You can go after maybe a couple that didn't necessarily perform maybe the way that they would have wanted to. I do think it is a bigger issue. The player pool probably isn't what we wanted, but we've also decided to shrink the potential player pool, and that'll get into. I'll kind of dive a little bit more into that. But as far as how we did in the Copa America, it was not good. We had a chance to not only to at least get out of the group and then see what we could have done for someone in a knockout game. We didn't get that opportunity. The red card in the Panama game, absolutely. Matt Turner getting hurt, Horvath having to come in. Yes, that probably is the main reasons why we didn't advance. Though that said, this was a chance to roll up the sleeves, I guess, as people could say. It was a chance to really see what Berhalter and I guess this group of players have. Finally something was put on a plate for them, and then a couple things changed, and it wasn't so easy, and they had to fight a little bit, and we weren't able to deal with a little adversity. Not the first time, really, under Berhalter, and I'll get into a little more of that. But first, I am going to run down what's happened in Euros. We did have the round of 16 games, some surprises, and then really the kind of consensus best team coming into this ended up leaving with even more consensus in everyone kind of chasing Spain right now. Though Spain's luck. They've happened to draw Germany before a semifinal or even a final. Tournament is being hosted in Germany. This doesn't feel very fair to me, though. It also feels like Spain are equipped to handle really anyone that comes their way. But the gauntlet isn't very kind because one bracket has that, and the other bracket has potentially England and Netherlands, along with a couple other upsets in Switzerland and Turkey or Turkey. Hey. But to get started, I will begin a little bit with Germany and Denmark. This game had everything. Thunderstorms. I didn't really know games were paused for thunderstorms. I guess it just doesn't happen in England. There's been it makes sense. It was just kind of surprising to see it happen. Uh, Shaky offsides and decisions though by the ref. There was also Germany basically scored I don't know 3 or 4 minutes into the game with a great header by Schlotterbeck, and it was a great moment for him. He's a Dortmund player. The game was in Dortmund, and that was called off for just I guess they fouled or they fouled like Kimmich doing like a pick play, and I guess that was just deemed an unsoccer move. I don't really know. I was surprised that goal wasn't really given. Denmark did have their moments. They even scored the first goal. I believe it's Anderson, and this one gets taken off for a shaky offsides call. The way that they do offsides with the automated, you can't really go with that. It's just more of a kind of an come on, man, situations where it's the right call, but like really should it be? And then Anderson just didn't have luck this game, so he gets his goal ruled out, and then just a few minutes later, he has a handball called on him. He's got his hand out. Yes, I don't really know if it's in an unnatural position, but it is sticking out, and it does prevent a cross from a ball maybe reaching someone into the box, and so it's close distance as well. They honestly just want defenders in the box to just defend with their hands behind the back at all times. It seems like they're very adamant about that. But this did force a couple commentators just to be like throw out the rule book and start all over with both offsides and handball. Uh, And even before that, Denmark had a couple moments for Rasmus Højlund to finally get going. Was played in. It looked like, and I don't really know if it's necessarily Højlund's fault or just Manuel Neuer is just a freak at recognizing when to sprint off his line, even at his age, because he probably did save a goal for Denmark, earlier in the game as well, and so. We get the 1-0 start thanks to that, shaky handball that Havertz is able to convert with the PK, and then Havertz really had a chance to really kind of announce himself. He had a brilliant turn, collecting a ball, turned, he completely fooled Anderson again. He was able to carry the ball. He was completely 1v1 with the keeper, and he did like it was the most like Havertz like kind of play you can imagine. It's like he does all of the hard stuff really really well, and then when it comes time to just put something on the goal, at least make the keeper make a save. And I think he's trying for a chip, and he just kind of maybe hits the ground even before it, but he misses it wide. I also think the refs kind of allowed. Uh, Denmark to completely get away with completely shoving someone that was joining in the attack just completely behind the play, because it looked like Havertz even had a square ball if he wanted that, and then once he was taken out, Havertz didn't have that option. But it doesn't really matter, because a few minutes later, the guy Schlotterbeck that had recently had his goal ruled out still had his moment to shine at that stadium, and he has a brilliant long ball over the top, similar to what we saw in the Champions League, and similar to what we saw in the Champions League final, but also in the Champions League semifinal, because he had basically it was a similar kind of ball that he hit to Fulkrug then that allowed them to basically beat PSG. It's just he's got a great eye for a pass, and it's a long ball hit over the top. Uh, Denmark just kind of get lost a little bit with losing Musiala with his runs, and Musiala is able to get behind Anderson. He times it on sides, and he does what Havertz could not do. He is able to finish. So. I mean, there you go. I think Schlotterbeck actually was even my man of the match, but Musiala gets the glory, gets the goal, gets the glory. He's up there for maybe player of the tournament. At least there's the nomination for him. I think he's up there with 3 goals as well. And he didn't necessarily have his best game versus Switzerland, but it does feel that he's having a moment at the minute. But as far as this game, the score looks probably worse than it was. I mean, Denmark were hard done by a few of those decisions. No Morten Hormand, that they weren't able to play with him. He was suspended. I don't really love the idea of the 2 yellows always taking someone out. And they Denmark went with Thomas Delaney instead of Norgard. I was a bit surprised by that, and not necessarily like Delaney played a bad game. Denmark didn't really play a bad game, uh, but they didn't get some things to go their way. I thought Eriksson looked good again. So I mean that's one thing you can say. Eriksson had a very good tournament in all of their games really. Rasmus Højlund, he just looked like he was looking to find confidence coming into the tournament. It's really not the place you really want to go searching at a minute, and yeah, it did feel just probably if he was a little bit more informed, maybe he could have made a couple of these chances look a little bit better. Uh, it felt Denmark was kind of searching for the right kind of combinations to play with him. They tried Jonas Wind, that really wasn't working, so they tried Eriksson and Skov in this game, and that didn't necessarily work either. Though they were able to create a couple chances for him. Uh, and so with Germany, the interesting thing here was how they started the game, because there's been a lot of talk that English fans have been looking at Musiala and Florian Wirtz, and they've been looking at Germany playing both together and not really having issues. I do think they have had issues. I mentioned that in my Switzerland kind of rundown, and here it looks like Nagelsmann agreed. Nagelsmann sat Florian Wirtz for someone that is more of a kind of a traditional, stereotypical kind of winger, someone that looks to receive the ball on the touchline and doesn't just leave the half space. Now, when Sane gets it, he wants to cut inside towards goal, but Sane was doing a very good job to keep width and uh, to keep someone in that position where you weren't just reliant on Kimmich to do all of that. And it worked. Now, Sane did not necessarily have his best game, but he did a good job to at least do some of that. to always to have an outlet out there that allowed Kimmich to play a little closer inside. That also gave Gundogan a little bit more room, and it seemed like Musiala enjoyed having a little more space to himself as well. And we'll see what they do for versus Spain. Uh, I imagine Wirtz will feature somewhere somehow. Maybe he'll come off the bench, or maybe they'll even start with him, and they'll just tell him to be a little bit more disciplined to stay on the touchline, because too often that has been a little bit of an issue. I feel like with Germany, where Wirtz has tried to leave that space a little bit, crowd things up a little bit, and Wirtz is very good on the turn. He's very similar to Phil Foden in that respect. He can collect the ball in tight space. He doesn't really need a ton of room to be able to work, but sometimes this is really all about a spacing issue, and so we'll see what they have in store for Germany. I mean, for Spain. One thing you can say is Germany looked threatening on like every single set piece anytime they were crossing the ball. So can they get something on the back post, beating Cucurella or Carvajal? Can they look dangerous on maybe a corner kick? We'll have to see. I mean, Cruz and Gundogan also, a Real Madrid, midfielder, a Barcelona midfielder this past season. They have plenty of experience, obviously playing against most of Spain's team members. Will that kind of factor in? But we'll see. We'll see how this goes, because it's 2 games now. Germany haven't really looked their best. They've come into this tournament with kind of weird expectations. Everyone kind of knew. Well, Germany hosting a tournament, usually they always play well, or at least everyone like goes back to 2006 World Cup. When a crowd can usually galvanize a team to maybe play a little bit better than they are, and Germany has had obviously has shown to have a lot of a lot of quality. They've been talked about as one of the favorites after their first game versus Scotland. Uh, and but they're going into this game kind of being a team that is still kind of searching for themselves, searching for a little bit of an identity, I think. Now they do have a they do they play a similar way with Cruz. I don't necessarily know how much Havertz really does work out for them or not. Fulkrug seems to offer them a little bit more of a threat, but is he really someone you want to start a game with versus a Spain team that you're probably not necessarily going to have a lot of the ball? We'll have to see, because they're playing against the team that does know that does have an identity, that does know what they want to do, and basically the most balanced team in the competition. So that's the reason why they've been so good. They can attack down the right wing. They can attack down the left. They don't have players that clash into each other. They've got 3 of the best midfielders really you can field in the tournament in Pedri, Fabian Ruiz, and Rodri. Rodri probably being the best player, best midfielder, best player, maybe even coming into the tournament. Uh, but Fabian Ruiz has been equally as good, to be honest. And Pedri has had moments though in this game. It wasn't necessarily working for him, and they subbed him out to go to bring in Danny Olmo. And Spain's actually attack worked a little bit better with Danny Olmo. But in a game when you maybe need a little bit more control, maybe Pedri can still work. But defensively, maybe you can look at them. The Le Normand, player for Sociedad. I think he's about to like maybe move to Atletico Madrid. Uh, a good player, but it's not necessarily someone that has a ton of experience necessarily. So at the back end, they do have Laporte. Though they have Nacho. Uh, Somebody, Carvajal has loads of experience, so it's not necessarily like it's an inexperienced backline. I still wonder if Cucurella, that to me, he's been very good. He's been one of the more surprising players in the tournament for me. But still, I just kind of look at in a moment, in a big moment, could him maybe show up? We'll have to see. Uh, I mean, they played Georgia, and they went down a goal with the lay nomad own goal, and it still didn't matter. I mean, frankly, it took a little whiles for them to equalize, and it came from Rodri. But it's just the Georgia keeper Maladashvili probably made like 8 saves even before that. 8 really good saves. I mean, Spain were all over Georgia, and it is probably what you expected. You expected Georgia to kind of sit back, to try to soak in some pressure, and maybe try to get on the break as much as they could. And the goal they scored basically came when Spain had started the first 2 minutes of the game having 90% of the ball. But in past years, I think it possibly could have been fits for them. To be honest, I think Georgia getting the opening goal, with Luis Enrique coaching this team and picking a different kind of a squad rotation. This possibly could have been a game or a game that Spain would have dropped, because this is the kind of game that they did in the past years, but it's not a Spain of those years. Uh, and they get the first goal from Rodri first it's a great kind of first ball by Pedri. He just plays it out wide to Nico Williams in a just outrageous kind of flick, and then Nico Williams does really well to collect it, and he draws a shot. And again, it's a very good save. Spain are able to continue keeping possession, and then eventually, I think someone squares it to Rodri. Rodri has the first kind of touch, and then he has a goal that has almost become his kind of trademark goal that we have seen for the last year or so. He scored the similar kind of goal, in the last game for Man City. For West Ham, and scored similar type goal to win them the Champions League, and that's just scored that similar kind of goal, that kind of cutback goal, hard, a hard low shot trying to pick out the corner from top, away from outside the box. That's how they won the Champions League, basically. And so I feel like that was fitting, but really the main difference to why the Spain is different is their ability to just be fully direct when they need to. Now they're still as good as any team with the ball, but man, the way that they can float a ball, on down the sidelines and ask one of their amazing wingers to win it, and then take someone on 1v1, and that's just how do you defend them? And that's basically how they get their third goal with Nico Rose, but they get the second one with Fabian Ruiz. I mean, it was still a 1-1 game, after halftime. In fact, Georgia had a moment to equalize after, I think it was maybe Pedri had a bit of a mess up, and uh, uh, Valdiscalia had something that was like a 60-yard shot, open net, because he saw the goalie was a little outside his area, and he went for it. He went for the amazing, like, David Beckham like chip, and he nearly pulled it off. But after that, really was like kind of the last moments that Georgia had, frankly. And it looks like Spain had a couple chances to get that second even before this. So again, Mamardashvili was making good saves. Spain eventually have a free kick that's drawn, and they allow the 16-year-old to take it. And man, does he have a fantastic hit that goes over the wall, has the dip and curl, and forces again another really good save by Mamardashvili. But it's not enough. They're able to recycle it. They get the ball back to Yamin Lamal, and he basically has the similar kind of cross that he applied versus Croatia. Back in the first game, where he seems to, like, this has become almost his trademark kind of move, and it is just perfectly delivered. Back post that Fabian Ruiz is there, and Fabian Ruiz again is having a fantastic tournament as well, and he plays a role for the third goal. So again, Georgia are having one of the few moments when they are able to go forward a little bit and have a little bit of a counterattack, and Spain just do really well to defend it. And the ball finds Fabian Ruiz, and he does a very good job to have a nice little touch to go around his back, and basically he kind of the ball go kind of uh, around the back with a little of a turn that he does. But he fools the defender that's kind of close to him, and then he looks up and he sees that Nico Williams is on sides, and there's just all the space behind him, and he boots it. He basically does a long ball for Nico Williams to chase. He does. And Nico Williams then gets into a situation where he still has to take on the center back, and basically he does. He fools like he's going to go cut it inside, but he has a nice little touch, a nice little feint, and he's able to actually go around him, going outside. So that's another thing too. Spain have an ability to not just they don't just have players on the wings that want to just cut towards goal. They've got the ability to kind of fake and to go outside to create as well. Not a lot of wide players for some reason are able to do this. I don't really understand why that is. Uh, but he's able to do that, and then he squares up to the keeper, and then he's able to beat Mamardashvili by hitting a ball really hard and really high. He basically lifts it, and that's a fantastic goal. And then Danny Olmo, I mentioned how he came on for Pedri, played a role in a number of really nice setup goals or setup moments that Spain probably could have enjoyed a little bit more. Even before Spain got the fourth, Yamal had possibly could have had a hat trick. It felt like they kept finding him the ball in the box, and he was getting really close. He was forcing Mamardashvili to make a number of saves. There was one moment when he had a great little give and go, I think, with Danny Olmo, and Yamal basically had the final touch that led to like an own goal, but it was ruled off for an offsides. And Olmo had a couple of moments where he was also given the ball in the box, and his touch was kind of letting him down. But then for the fourth goal, his touch didn't. He had a fantastic touch to collect it, and then he was able to find the corner as well. And Danny Olmo was very good when he came on as well. That was a pretty good sub move by the manager. And it's just it is hard to really find faults. Like I said, the only fault potentially is just they're playing with a lot of young players. But the talent is definitely not just the talent is there. They have won something. They did win a Nations League just a year ago. So you can say that they're kind of proven at least in that respect. But that's just the balance. The balance in this team is the best in the entire tournament. So uh, we'll see. Because again, this could have been a test where it could have been a banana peel because it has in most recent years, but it's a different team now. The way that they were able to, like I said, the way that they were able to be direct when they need to, they can even in the box. Just you have pace, you have people that can make runs. It just changes. It changes a side that is so good with the ball. It completely elevates them in a way that almost makes them unplayable. Because a side that has a lot of the ball that doesn't have movement is frankly kind of easy to handle. Now usually you suffer a little bit, maybe your legs kind of tire by suffering, but it's when you have both, and frankly, it's kind of rare to see. Uh, and it's not just that they have both. They have balance. It's not like Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal want to play in the same kind of spaces. They're fine playing on opposite wings. It's very fortunate the way that they've been able to come across this, and whether or not they win or not, maybe they do get knocked out by the host Germany. I think the way that they have looked, in 2 years from now when Yamal is 18 and Nico Williams he's only 21 now. I think Spain are gonna go into 2026 now as the favorite. It's not gonna be France, it's not gonna be Brazil or Argentina. I think that'll be my prediction. We've got a new favorite, for that tournament in 2 years because there's no reasons for this team to not improve, frankly. We'll see how they do with injuries. We'll see how Yamal's able to handle, being from, an adolescent teen to maturing into a full-time adult. We'll see if Barca, ruins him the way that they have ruined youngsters in the past. So they are gonna have to be careful with that. But man, he looks way too good now. For being his age. It's not just, oh, it's impressive what a 16-year-old is doing. If he was 28, I would be praising what he's looking like and what he was doing. It is unbelievable. And Nico Williams as well has been equally as impressive and equally as good. And so and you kind of forget about Alvaro Morata, but he has a piece in this too with the kind of runs that he's able to make. And you're not able to just sell out and have two players, trying to defend the wings because last ditch effort. They can still cross it into the box, and they still have Fabio Ruiz is doing a good job to make some disguise runs into the box, and Alvaro Morata is good in the air. He's got a good physical presence to him, and he's good in the air. So it's just there's it's such a balanced team. Um, and I did pick them to win the tournament. Coming into this, I didn't really know they'd be this good. Now they were very impressive in a few of the warm up games that they were playing, but warm ups. You don't really know how much that's going to factor in. But man, they really have looked good, and we'll just have to see what they do for Spain, and then what's waiting for them after Spain, or I mean after Germany is potentially either a France or a Portugal. But France, yeah, France are just kind of a no one really knows what they are, and I'll get to them. Portugal kind of likewise. Portugal maybe can match Spain as far as kind of talent wise they can put out there. but they have not shown to be this kind of balance. Uh, France maybe can offer that, but they just haven't. They have looked like a side that doesn't really know how to play together. They're very good at making games difficult and ugly. Very good at creating chances for Mbappe, but when Mbappe gets the ball, he's kind of isolated sometimes. They don't really have. We haven't seen the France that people were expecting. But that said, I don't think they care because if they get to a semifinal and they get matched up with Spain, they might like their chances. I mean, they one of the funny things about their the French game that's this past one is they set up with basically three or four ball winners, not necessarily people to play through lines, but basically people to make uh, make them playing through the midfield impossible with Conte, with Tchouaméni. They've been playing Rabiot. They could probably fit in Camavinga in there as well versus Spain, who do want to keep the ball. Now, Belgium did not care. Belgium actually set up a bit of a surprise. Belgium set up in that game to not play with a midfield almost. Commentators were talking about they had a defensive line basically with like Kevin De Bruyne playing deep, and then they had like 60 yards, and then you had a front line. Belgium did not care about the middle of the field. Spain will. So maybe France can kind of look at that with Mbappe. Maybe you can look at kind of a way that Mbappe versus on the left was like Carvajal in a sprint. Maybe Georgia were able to show that Spain could be gotten at ish on a transition or on a counter. Uh, so we'll have to see. That's getting a little ahead of ourselves because France have to beat Portugal, and France again haven't. That game could actually be an absolute dull fest because of the way that both managers have not really set the teams up that well. But so let's see. That is kind of where we are with Spain and Spain and Georgia. And let's see. Oh, I mentioned how it is rotten luck for Spain to have the draw that they have, but a team that's on the opposite end is England. But England had to get through Slovakia, and this game really did have it all. This game had a if you were kind of doing what's called a hate watch to watch England just flop out of the tournament, you almost got your just rewards. You had like 95 minutes of enjoyment there. If you're someone that is just kind of rooting for just chaos and just lots of drama, you got your fill in that too. And if this game, just as long as you weren't just uh, like actually rooting for Slovakia to win, then you got what you would have wanted. It was another game though coming in that Luke Shaw was not able to go, not able to fit. So the topics coming into this was who does England play at left back if Trippier can't go because Trippier was supposedly injured and Luke Shaw wasn't fit. I mentioned last week how Ian Wright, a former Arsenal legend, had suggested Bukayo Saka, which got him loads of angry replies from Arsenal fans because they thought it was a dig at Saka, not realizing. I think it's just kind of an acknowledgement that Saka can play both ways. Saka is talented enough to do that, and frankly, you need a playmaker that at least will get the ball on that touchline that can deliver across with his left foot. Because Trippier can't do that, and we actually saw that. We saw that in the second half, and I don't really know if Southgate was thinking of it himself or Southgate is or his assistants are manipulated to whatever is trending on social media. But we got it in the second half, and it wasn't terrible. We actually got Saka at right wing, at left back, left wing back. When England even switched to a back three, and we even got him almost at right wing back. So they like flipped him over when Eze came on. So this game was wild. The first one, frankly, it started off with Slovakia honestly getting the better chances, and England were doing a decent job to at least control the ball a little bit. But then every time it would go to Trippier, Slovakia were very good at basically creating a moment that was either nearly a turnover or was. So Trippier basically has a terrible back pass that Mark Gahey has to go to ground, and Mark Gahey picks up an early yellow. I think it's like 3 minutes into the game. Basically, England pick up three yellows in the first 10, 15 minutes. I think Bellingham had one, and I think Kobe Mano had one. That was another thing coming into this game as well. Who would play next to Declan Rice? And it was Kobe Mano, the 19-year-old. And Kobe Mano had a couple really nice moments on the ball, but again, it got to a situation where Slovakia did not care about that, and they didn't really care about pressing England necessarily. They pressed a little bit higher, but they didn't necessarily care when England were trying to build up with like a Rice or a Mano. Basically, they were sitting off and saying, "Play through us, actually pass through us." England could not do that again. So I don't really know if necessarily Kobe Mano is the one to unlock things or not. He wasn't terrible, uh, but at the same time, there were a couple of times where he was trying to kind of look for the ball. England was losing it. He was frankly kind of out of position. And there were a couple of times when England, on those transitions, Kyle Walker wasn't necessarily following what he was supposed to do. There were a couple of times when Slovakia actually got in behind Kyle Walker, where there was one ball that flashed across the goal that could have gone in. Pickford was kind of rooted to the ground a little bit, and then there was one that found a cross into the box that needed Mark Gahey to have a really good clearance. Otherwise, that probably would have been a goal as well. So Slovakia were really on it, and then after a couple of minutes of more pressure, uh, Slovakia kind of get onto a loose ball. They just kind of hoof it long, and England get into a situation where they miscommunicate a little bit. I think it's John Stones and Mark Gahey both try to go for the ball, uh, allow it to bounce, or just kind of run into each other. The ball is able, Slovakia is able to get onto the loose ball, and then at this point, Kai Walker doesn't know at all where he is, who he's supposed to go to or not, and he leaves the spot he's in to go kind of mark the guy that is making a late run on the right side. And really, what all Kai Walker is doing is playing the guy on sides that Slovakia ended up going to. Mark Gahey had a moment after missing the header to actually get goal side. But the problem is once the other guy was able to get ahead of Gahey, Gahey couldn't really do anything to bring him down because he's already on a yellow. In fact, Gahey tries to almost get away with kind of a little push in the back before Schranz is able to get that finish. Otherwise, Gahey possibly could have been sent off as well. I think that's something that Donovan was able to catch on to. Uh, but so I mean, 1-0, and it didn't feel like it was undeserved. Really, if England had a shot in the first half on goal, or that forced the keeper to work, I couldn't have remembered one. There was one moment when Kane maybe could have done a little bit better on a header. It just kind of missed a little bit, but it didn't feel like Kane had many touches. It didn't feel like Foden was doing really anything again either. It was very dysfunctional again, like it has long been. And we were wondering, well, would there be any kind of changes? And no changes. But England do come out a little bit different. So Foden even scores, I think, in the first couple of minutes, and it's a really good move by England. And it's finally a moment when they're able to get Kane a touch in the ball, in the final third, and Kane does well to immediately get it, and he plays it out wide. I think finds Trippier, and England finally look almost a side that is organized the way you're supposed to do, and Trippier finally does send a cross in with his left foot, and it should be an easy ball, but you praise what happens, and Foden just doesn't time his run properly, and you can't really go with the announcers were saying Foden could have done better. It's in that kind of heart of the moment. It's hard to necessarily go at him, but he is a little bit in front of the ball. Maybe he could have, held his run a little bit. Maybe Trippier could have released it a little earlier as well. And it's also the second time where Foden was nearly involved in a really good moment that could have been a goal, because we saw something similar like this last week versus Slovenia. Uh, and but this goal kind of came from England were moving the ball and going really nowhere for like basically 3 minutes, and then they finally, after going back to Pickford and then doing stuff with the center backs, they're finally able to get Kyle Walker to find Slovakia in kind of a stall mode, and Saka runs to the ball. Kyle Walker finds Saka, and Saka's able to turn, and it plays a fantastic ball to Harry Kane. But at this point, when Saka gets the ball, he also has Jude making a run ahead of him, so that opens a little gap as well. So this was well worked, and it could have been deserved for a goal, but it wasn't. After that, there was a free kick. Foden sent in a very good ball delivery that Kane had a header, and this one he's got to do better on. It's you don't necessarily want to blame everything on Kane. I even texted my group, my friend mates, that just Kane is just a cursed individual. No other way to say it. Uh, it is a monster chance, and it was just a because he's so close to the goal. If he gets it on target, it's probably going in. It was a big miss, and then Rice had a shot later in the second half that one banked off the post, and Kane had a chance for a rebound, and the rebound just kind of went over. You can't go at him for that. That's just a reaction moment, and Kane gets well to get contact on the ball. He just it takes a bad bounce right in front of the goal and bounces over the net. Uh, but England were not good. And then Southgate kind of recognized he did have to make some changes. Now, Trippier also, getting hurt maybe forced some of this. I don't really know. I haven't seen anything about Trippier necessarily being unfit to be able to play, so maybe they'll try him again. Trippier was not really good. He had the one moment where he was able to square it to Foden, but it just that whole left side, the entire tournament with Trippier and Foden has not worked at all. And, some of it has been Foden's fault, but a lot of it has been Trippier's fault. And so Southgate brought on Cole Palmer for Trippier, and lo and behold, moved Saka to left wing. And I thought, if nothing else, it did. I thought England just enjoyed a little more space and freedom. I thought Bellingham was able to get a little bit more involved. Uh, even Foden as well. I thought it seemed like Harry Kane was trying to get involved. It just felt like they finally had a way to at least attack on both sides. Also, Cole Palmer was doing a decent job to at least, if nothing else, when someone was around him, he wasn't just passing it, afraid and passing it backwards. He was inviting pressure on. He was trying to get past some people. In England, were at least having some enjoyment. And then Southgate made some other changes. He brought on Eberiche Eze as well. Basically, Eze almost became their left wing back towards at least in extra time. But Eze is similar to Cole Palmer, is one of those where he has a little ball to feet, but he's also really, really good when the ball is at his feet, and it just forced Slovakia to, if you wanted to, turn them over, you had to really work. And I think towards the end, Slovakia's legs really did kind of get a little tired. But we get to the 90th minute, still nothing has really changed. Slovakia's got the 1-0 lead. They're defending a little bit, deeper into the box. They weren't really able to get onto the ball much themselves. And then Southgate finally decides to, throw caution to the wind, as they say. He takes off Phil Foden and brings on Ivan Toney, a player that just hadn't played the entire tournament. I was wondering, should you bring on Anthony Gordon to at least make some runs? And he went with Toney. Southgate made the right decision. One thing that anyone that has watched Brentford for the last year or two, or even 3 years, is frankly Ivan Toney is frankly as good as anyone maybe in Europe at winning aerial duels. He is an amazing at just timing his jump. He's just so physical in the air. He's unreal at that. And England got into a situation where they did have a lot of the ball in the final third, whether it was from crossing it or whether it was even from long throw-ins. And basically, that is where we get to it. England have there's either a throw-in or some kind of free kick, and Labatka has just kind of a lazy clearance. It goes out for a throw-in, and it's whoever has the throw. I forget who actually does it. They do the long throw-in, and lo and behold, Bellingham gets onto it and has a bike, and it's one of those most career defining, sentimental, incredible goals. And for it to already happen to a 21-year-old, I mean, Jude Bellingham can basically England have an election this today. Jude Bellingham can maybe be prime minister after that goal. It's amazing for to already have such a career defining moment. And it was a spectacular goal as well. But I think Ivan Toney has a role in the goal. So as a throw in, I think it's Marguehi. Marguehi is able to basically win the flick header, but Ivan Toney kind of runs to it, and Toney doesn't really get touch the ball or anything, but Toney draws like three or four people to kind of run to him, and Jude Bellingham is free because of that, and Bellingham's able to basically do his somersault, do his bike to score. I mean, outrageous, outrageous to even like think of doing that. If he gets it wrong and it goes out of bounds, Slovakia have a goal kick. They can maybe even get the game done. It's so, and he probably would have been attacked for even trying that. and that's just the way that English media are. It's audacious as hell. It is incredible, and it is he celebrated it with his iconic kind of with his arms kind of etched out. It was it's what he deserved. It's not really what England deserved. It's what he deserved. But also Southgate, bringing on Ivan Toney. Now he did it really late into the game. Uh, I think the Bellingham moment happens because of that sub. I haven't necessarily seen a lot of that talked about, but it was fantastic. And then Ivan Toney played a role in the second goal as well. So and Harry Kane here, and England basically get a little just kind of a free kick, little outside of the area. It's not a corner kick, but it's a free kick. And then I think Eze gets onto a shot. The shot kind of deflects, and then Toney just flicks a header towards the back post. I don't think he's going for goal, but I don't necessarily think he's trying to specifically pick out Harry Kane either. But it is just the 2 and 2 kind of happen, and Kane is able to get the double header, able to head the ball back into the net, and Harry Kane's able to get his big England moment, and just you don't really want to necessarily go with Foden, but Foden and Harry Kane have not had chemistry at all this entire tournament. And with Harry Kane and Ivan Toney, you just saw a different England side. Uh, and I'm going to get to it as well. There is after Ivan Toney came on, when Pickford was going long or when England was going long, it just felt like Toney was doing a better job than anyone else at winning that second ball or forcing a foul. It just he just kept winning possessions after possessions. England were able to go long, so they can't. England have not been able to build possession at all through the middle. Uh, and it's been anytime they've asked Pickford to go long, he's been doing it, and England have just been giving the ball back away. Here, it wasn't the case. England were winning, keeping the ball. It just feels like Ivan Toney was better at that. I just seemed him and Harry Kane seemed to I can't explain it. Seem just seemed to work well together. England almost went to like a 3-5-2 kind of shape, playing with two strikers, and it was as a wing back on one side, and I think it was Saka at the other. Maybe they were trying to fit Cole Palmer, somewhere in there as kind of like a 10. It is not the kind of stuff that we've seen from Southgate. So credit to him. Now it did take a long time for him to do this, but if nothing else, at least it is something. It is something for them to think about, and it's something for them to have momentum coming into to the next game. They finally this can either galvanize them or Southgate can go back to what he was doing beforehand. Play against Switzerland, a hot Switzerland team, and things could maybe backfire again. Again, everything is going to rely on Southgate getting the lineup right and getting the second half changes right. So we'll see. What they have to offer for Switzerland. Uh, so already mentioned. I mean the Jude really is the story, kind of just saving him. I already mentioned Ivan Toney and Harry Kane. Uh, the problem with kind of doing the formation that Southgate was kind of doing towards the end is it almost has to be one or the other. You don't really know how you fit on Foden in that situation. You can play Jude Bellingham in a bit of a different role as kind of a midfield destroyer, kind of 8/10 as well. Maybe you can play Foden instead of Palmer, but it doesn't feel like you're going to be able to play Foden given his little 10 role because it almost seems like Kane is your 10. And unless Kane is going to change, now the other way you can go about that is you play Tony instead, and you play Foden instead of Kane. Now that's not going to happen. Kane is the captain, so Foden gets into a sticky situation here. Now I have seen reports today that Southgate has been thinking about doing a double 10. Uh, with Jude and Foden, and maybe you could just play soccer almost like a wing back or playing really wide. Because Man City have been able to find a way to do like a Kevin De Bruyne and a Foden almost playing as double tens. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe if that happens or not. Another thing to talk about is they're going to have to make some roster changes because then there's going to be no Mark Gahey. Mark Gahey got that yellow card. He's going to miss the next game. So what does England do there? Now, they've already had left back issues. Do you find a way to just not play with the left back? That could be one way to do it. Maybe you play Anthony Gordon and he provides you with. Uh, I can't imagine it's going to be Saka, but we'll have to see what he does. I would probably play John Stones on the left center back role, and either play Conte or Joe Gomez. I've seen people recommend Joe Gomez to play as a basically in Mark Gahey's stead. I don't really think he's great with his left foot. As someone that's watched Liverpool a lot. When Joe Gomez had Van Dijk and played on the right side, he was amazing. I feel like when he's been asked to play a little bit on the left side, I don't really necessarily think he's done that great. And also, he did a fantastic job, playing as a kind of a fullback or playing in a back three at moments. But there were also you could see that there were limitations basically. So we'll see what Southgate has to do there. As far as Slovakia, it is it's really just unfortunate. Someone had a hero moment against you basically. You outplayed them for the most part. The goal was absolutely deserved, but it did feel basically as the game kind of wore on. England would have a deeper bench, and if Southgate were able to use the bench, England would probably have an advantage, and that's basically what it came down to. So, uh, but Slovakia were causing England issues everywhere, and it just they weren't able to get that second goal, and that just that and they weren't able to really change anything as far as bringing out some subs. And another thing I was thinking about, when you heard that their right back was someone that was 37 years old, they were talking about how great his fitness levels were. But he was never really challenged. He was never challenged 1v1. And I just kept thinking, this would have been the perfect game to play in Anthony Gordon instead of a Foden. In the past, it could have been a perfect game to play someone like a Rashford. And I thought it was finally going to be the time when that would have showed up. And I guess I can double down because I feel like it almost did. Another thing that's kind of funny is Kyle Walker has been playing right back for them because he's so good defensively. And he's good. He's good at recovery. He's got amazing, sprinter speed. Are his instincts necessarily great? If you allow someone to get to run behind you where you're not necessarily aware, how good is what good does that sprinter speed cost, or how much does that help you basically? And I was just kind of enjoying it. I was enjoying how Kyle Walker was getting absolutely owned left and right in that first half, and his awareness was kind of what played the goal onside. So it's not going to happen. I don't think they're going to play Trent Alexander-Arnold instead, but I do wonder what they do as far as how they change the formations. Another thing too, Switzerland are going to play a back three. We've seen what they've done every single game. The way that England have been trying to press, and it's been a mess. England out of possession had been a big problem too. Harry Kane's not going to be able to help, and Switzerland have Fabian Schär, they have Akanji back there. They have Granit Xhaka, who's been running every single game he's played in. Are England going to be able to turn them over? So this is going to be you look on paper. England have to look at this and think this is a massive opportunity. We can't let it go to waste again. We'll have to see if it does or not. I mean, it's going to require Southgate being able to learn from his mistakes or not. Another thing too is if you find a way to play Ivan Toney, maybe you don't have to have that Declan Rice go long, or maybe you don't have to have Declan Rice, play through lines that I've been kind of harping on a little bit. You can just ask him to go long, and you can win some second balls and do things that way. Rice actually, to be fair to him, was better this game when the options were out in front of him. Finally, there were people ahead of the ball. Finally, he could switch it out wide to when Saka was there, or it was Cole Palmer that was doing a good job to be ahead of the ball. Rice was doing pretty decent with his switches. It wasn't necessarily like he was playing through lines, but he was doing a good job when he got it. He was quickly kicking it upfield to whoever was open on the wing. So it seems he's comfortable doing that. We've seen him. The closer he is to goal, he's comfortable as well. And maybe you can figure out things kind of that way. If they don't play Ivan Toney, though, I do think you still have an issue. So we'll see. All of the issues that we've talked about are still there. There's a Lewis Dunk that he can maybe try. He's the only one that has a left foot, but he does not have pace at all. I think that would be a big mistake, but that's probably something that to me would be the Southgate move that he would do, and I think that would be a massive own. But we'll have to see. You could do Gomez, do a back three. You have your right back kind of do a little bit more kind of advanced stuff. give the right back more of a free will. That could be a way that actually would fit someone like an Alexander Arnold. I keep trying to find a way to get Alexander Arnold on the field, not necessarily Kyle Walker. There might be some nefarious reasons behind that, or not. I'll let other people be the judge. But we'll have to see what they do, and the team that they'll play will be Switzerland because Switzerland got the better of Italy with a really great goal by Roman Voila. I mean, they were all over Italy to even start the game. I think they even mentioned Granit Xhaka had more passes into the final third at halftime than Italy had as a team. So things are not necessarily going well. Italy looked completely lost. Now they didn't have Calafiori. For some reason, the manager decided to play without Jorginho, and just and the player that they played instead of Jorginho, Fagioli, completely lost for Eller. So someone makes a kind of a disguise run into the box, and it goes unmarked. And Forla is able to apply the finish, and then Vargas in the second half had made a run kind of towards the near box, but also he had a lot to do because to have the shot that he had, it's another one of those outside the box wonder goals. We've seen a lot of that this tournament, which is to me that's what's made this tournament so enjoyable. Is you haven't been able to just defend in a shell. Teams that have had the quality to hit from distance have been doing it, and to do this to beat Donnarumma, who was one of the keepers of the tournament to this point, it was impressive. And so 2-0 that killed the game. Italy tried to come back into it. They did have some moments after they moved. They brought on Bradicuti, the second striker, but they Italy just did not just looked lost. They did not really have any runs ahead. The unfortunate thing for me was for Radiguet to come on. They took off Nico Barella. I feel like you could have maybe gone to Cristante, or you could have gone to Fagioli, or you could have looked elsewhere. In my opinion, now also tried El Shaarawy, uh, the former AC Milan man, and that did not work. He got subbed off at halftime. And one thing you saw, El Shaarawy on one end and then Chiesa on the other, they were just doing nothing to help with Switzerland's overlapping on the wing backs. And just it was the shape and tactics, and Switzerland deciding to play their controller in Granit Xhaka, where Italy decided to sit Jorginho, and I guess they were worried about Jorginho defensively, but Italy looked lost defensively as well, and they didn't have Calafiori. Uh, I don't necessarily want to say it was all on that, but the solutions to play without him were not good. So I guess his rep goes up after a loss because he wasn't involved in any of this. Uh, and we'll see what Switzerland have for England. They have a lot of. You look at their player pool. They have a lot of players that are used to or that recognize that won't necessarily be uncomfortable playing England. Uh, like Akanji and Fabian Schär for two of their center backs. Raymond Foiler, I think, was at Nottingham Forest for a season. Granit Xhaka gets to face maybe some of his Arsenal mates. Uh, so this is going to be fun to see how this works. And out of lo and behold, out of all the kind of dark horses that we were talking about, before the tournament, it's Switzerland in the end, and Switzerland were so they had a good tournament back in 2022, and they just got thumped by Gonzalo Ramos in Portugal when Ramos had a hat trick in like the first half. And this shouldn't have been that surprising. They've also had a couple of players that have had really good club seasons. The I don't know necessarily Frola is at Bologna now, but the Ndoye player has been fantastic for them this tournament, and he had a good season for Bologna. When coming into this, you didn't really know if who they were going to play up top. Basically, they were reliant on Vargas for a lot of their goals in qualifying, but their striker has always been kind of Embolo for a lot of these tournaments. And Embolo just hadn't played for like 2 years, and here he wasn't really that influential. Versus to do in the first game versus Hungary, it was a youngster that got his start instead. Uh, but we'll see if necessarily that works out or not. Uh, again, if England have to look at this as an opportunity, but again, uh, games aren't played games aren't played on paper. So we'll see how this goes. And then one thing I do want to say is two teams that have just really impressed. Is Slovakia versus England, and also it was Slovenia, a team that I was completely discounting last podcast, and I just think I was discounting them a little bit because of their lack of offensive threat all game or all tournament. Uh, but they have been incredibly hard to play through defensively, and I think if you're a U.S. fan, at least someone in my perspective, I've seen a lot of people blame that the player pool isn't good enough for or maybe it's overhyped, overrated, whatever the themes or whatever the I guess phrases people have been using to kind of escape or kind of let Berhalter and I guess the higher ups off the hook a little bit. Everyone's just been the players aren't as good as we've been saying, overrated, overhyped. These Euro players that or Euro based players aren't as good as our domestic players. There's been that kind of narrative as well. I just think it's not the we've got enough to advance out of a group of Bolivia and Panama, even with a red card. I thought we outplayed Panama for the most part. We matched them in shots. We didn't, obviously they had majority possession, but I still think we had enough there. Just a coach matters, especially at this level. And you're seeing it here, Slovakia. You're telling me that we don't have a better talent pool than Slovakia and Slovenia? This is nonsense. Now, I do think we've limited our talent pool by the way we've done. We've limited who can play the game here through with income access. But that'll be something I get to later on. So we get to Portugal and Slovenia. It is 0-0, but it is not drama free. And basically. Ronaldo was almost the hero. Ronaldo really was the entire story of the whole game. The announcers were having a little fun with it, with Ronaldo almost having a midlife crisis, mid game, because it seemed like Portugal to me were almost in a situation where they were trying to get Ronaldo a goal than necessarily score themselves. The ways that they kept feeding him the ball into the box, and a couple of these were really good chances, and just Ronaldo either mistimed his jump or the ball was just a little ahead of him. But it got to a point where it was silly. Ronaldo started taking every single free kick and started going for goal, regardless of how far he was, because the first free kick he took was close, was a pretty good shot. Uh, and then after that, it really did get foolish, and it just felt. And then right before extra time, Ronaldo got a PK or Portugal got a PK. It was a lame call, in my opinion, but this is what they've been calling. If a arm is stretched out and someone's crossing the ball and it hits the arm or hits the hand, it's called. And so Ronaldo had a moment to win the game, and he went against. I don't want to say necessarily a nemesis, but he went against the Atletico Madrid keeper that he is long faced in Jan Oblak, and Oblak makes the save. Now, eh, Ronaldo misses, but it's an amazing save by the keeper in Jan Oblak. Uh, so Slovenia were able to at least just hang in there, and as the team hangs in there, eventually you're going to get a chance here and there. And Sesko got two of them. There was one when and it came at a cost of Pepe, the older the guy the wily veteran, I guess you can say, because I think he's close to 40 years old. He's had a good tournament to this point, but here he did look his age, and he misjudged two balls basically bouncing by him, and Sesko was able to get behind him twice. Now the first one, the keeper came out and just kind of made things a little awkward, and Sesko just got the shot all wrong. The second one, in extra time, Diego Costa had probably save of the tournament because it was almost Colo Moani and Emi Martinez esque from the World Cup 2 years ago. It is that good. Smaller stakes, but it was an incredible save, and we were just getting to know how good of a goalkeeper Diego Costa was. So he makes that monumental save just to get it to PKs. It goes to PKs. Ronaldo takes the first one, and he's able to score. So he at least was able to have that moment, and then Diego Costa, all he did was save three in a row. Basically, won his team the round, and it it felt really harsh for Slovenia. It did feel, coming in, they were maybe one of the more weaker teams, but they were dogged. And I think it's kind of funny. It's a couple of teams now that have showed up and played the quote unquote outdated 4-4-2. Where you play with the two strikers and you're kind of playing. People don't necessarily like it because it can be very hard to. It can be rigid, I guess you can say. But what it also is, if it's well designed, and if a team isn't necessarily good at playing through lines, when you're able to double up on the wings. And so it got to a point where Portugal, all they could really do for creation was to cross it out wide, and they did have Ronaldo, and that is usually something you would like. But they were able to at least handle that, or just kind of got lucky, I guess, with Ronaldo missing. Uh, the other thing too was there were a couple of moments when Rafael Leao was able to get by his fullback or the guy that was marking him, but then he would be making the wrong decision. So poor decision after poor decision. And on the other side, they were trying Bernardo Silva on the wing instead. And Bernardo Silva drops for the ball. And if you're playing a team that is pressing and trying to win the ball back, that is a great tactic to use. Man City love doing this with Bernardo Silva. If you're playing a team that does not care if you have the ball or not, and Bernardo Silva just drops for the ball, it's going to get it and have nowhere to go. And frankly, and there's no one filling that space either. And it was just kind of playing a little bit more into what they wanted to do. Slovenia did not care about having the ball. They were very because Portugal were it was on Portugal to get that first goal to draw them out. They weren't able to do it, and so I just think Martinez kind of got it wrong in the beginning, and then he did make some changes. I think I didn't necessarily agree with the changes either. He took off Vitinha. I thought Vitinha was the one kind of midfielder that was trying to play through lines, that was trying to take people on, that was kind of getting behind his first man. Because if you can beat like the man kind of marking you, that changes everything. That forces people that are settled in to shift a little bit. It's not easy to shift when things are just going full speed. So I didn't really understand Vitinha coming off, but what he did bring on Jota, and Jota was able to make a couple of really nice moments. And basically, he could have won Portugal the game even before the Ronaldo PK, because Portugal Jota had a great little through ball that played in Ronaldo into the penalty area, and Ronaldo just missed it. So, but that to me is Liverpool's Jota. You don't necessarily know what he is as far as a profile. The only thing I know him for is get him into the box and he makes stuff happen. He's wily. He's not necessarily, you don't really think of him as like really athletic or pacey, but he's slippery. I guess I can say that the ball just seems to find him. He's slippery. He makes clever runs, and he finds ways he recognizes spaces, and he's not afraid when people are necessarily near him. He makes the right decisions, and it nearly worked there. But uh, so that's Portugal were able to advance, but only just. And we get Portugal versus France in what could either be a fantastic game or probably the dullest affair of them all. At least going by how they both teams played in their last game, and that gets us to France and Belgium, the rematch of the 2018 semis. And Kolo Muani wins it for them with a very late goal. Belgium looked a mess all tournament, so it was fitting that they looked a mess again. France are a favorite coming into this, and it doesn't feel like they've got into any kind of gear at all, 1, 2, or 3. Uh, but it doesn't matter because France are able to. They didn't necessarily look like they didn't necessarily look uncomfortable defensively. William Saliba has been quite a quite a rock for them. I've been surprised we haven't seen Kanate. They've been playing Upamecano instead. Upamecano did have a PK versus Poland, but for the most part, France have been very rock solid defensively. They also have loads of midfielders that are very good at winning the ball back and recovering as well. So that kind of helps with their being a rock defensively as well. And this is a very just bizarre kind of way that the way that France lined up with three ball winners, no real passers you would think of between Rabiot, Chouameni, and Conte, all three together, and then you're wondering, well, what are they going to do with the forward line? Dembele wasn't picked, so they went with Griezmann almost on the right wing, and I guess they were trying to, maybe play him a little inside if Koundé would make a run, but for the most part, he was trying to receive the ball out wide. Didn't really fit him, and Griezmann struggled to get involved. And then it was Mbappe on the left, and they tried Marcus Thuram, and France were only able to really, basically they didn't have any creation through the middle. So they were able to get it out wide. They were able to send some crosses in, and Thuram basically got on the end of two crosses. That I was thinking, if Olivier Giroud is playing in this game instead, I would think he would probably do a little bit better. Thuram has offered himself as far as defensively. He's been very good out of possession, makes up a lot of ground. But and he's had some really nice link-up plays when he has been into the box. I thought he was quite good at, setting up some chances versus the Netherlands. But his end product is his kind of, being asked to be the lead man, the finishing man, hasn't really worked out. And they frankly, that's one of the reasons why France have struggled here. They really know how to play Mbappe. Mbappe seems to be playing more on the left than necessarily at striker spot. Even when he's played through the striker, he's trying to play on the left to receive the ball. And when you do that, and just they haven't really had the balance there. They haven't, their kind of ways to attack or just find a way to get Mbappe the ball in the middle third ish area and see if he can create something there. You're not really seeing France being able to build possessions really. Another thing too is Chouameni to me looks more and more like Declan Rice, to be honest. He's not necessarily someone that's going to play through lines, but he can play that ball, play that long ball out wide. He actually had some really good switches in this game, but it's just Belgium were sitting off, and they were trying to look to break with maybe up and Dana or even a Lukaku. But Belgium were very they weren't really necessarily pressing themselves. They were kind of, being in a block a little bit, and France couldn't play through it. Yet Belgium was playing with Kevin De Bruyne in the middle, almost like a pivot, like kind of defensive midfielder, kind of next to Onana. Um, and France still weren't really able to play through it, and the commentators were hating on it. I'll make a slight defense for Tedesco that I understand the idea behind it, because if you play Kevin De Bruyne in his, like, quote unquote 10 spot, you're further upfield in the final third, kind of the connector. Where is he going to be able to receive the ball higher up there where he's not going to have Conte and Tchouaméni draped all over him? And so this was a way to at least get him touches on the ball, still allow him to dictate the game a little bit. Now, the issue to me was De Bruyne didn't have options when he got on the ball because you're playing Carrasco on the right instead, probably to defend a little bit with the fullback against Mbappe. So you understand a little bit there, but it's just you didn't really give De Bruyne much looks. Lukaku was not able to get involved at all. Now he got a couple chances in the second half, but I was just wondering. I like the idea of Open Data. Could you found a way to maybe try Open Data and Trussard instead? Just find a way to do something a little bit different. Or maybe find a way to play Tillmans and Onana together, and I guess you could have done the Kevin De Bruyne in the 10 spot, but it just felt they were thinking things that way. I didn't understand why Tillmans didn't necessarily start or play. Onana is Onana looks like he could be what a Chouameni is, or one as good of a DM as there is in Europe, except for one place. He doesn't seem comfortable on the ball at all. He frankly was one of the worst performing players when he was asked to be on the ball because he doesn't have a pass really in him. He's a great carrier. He can carry it. He's physically absolutely monumental. He's great at reading the game as well. Very great defensively. But it just felt Belgium when they were trying to pass him the back, they would get him the ball. He could find Kevin De Bruyne, but it just felt he wasn't really able to unlock things either. And it just felt weird. But at the same time, you can't necessarily say it didn't work because it was 0-0. It wasn't really like France had a lot of changes. And so which coach would be the first one to actually change it up? And it was Didier Deschamps. So it seemed like he brought Kolo Muani, moved Griezmann almost to his 10 role. And another thing too is Belgium were playing with Vertonghen back in the back line, and that ends up basically costing them a little bit. So uh, I think it's they France are able to sustain an attack. I think it's Griezmann that gets on the ball and plays a great ball into Kolo Muani, and he has a great little turn, and it's he does it quickly enough where Vertonghen isn't able to catch up, and Vertonghen actually gets just really unlucky because he tries to close down, and Kolo Muani's shot is almost mishit, and it doesn't really matter because it deflects off Vertonghen to wrong foot the keeper, and so real quick I'm going to pause it for a second. So all right, and we'll continue. So the one thing about Vertonghen not being able to recover is it does feel this is like typical Belgium. To be honest, it's the one thing that's been kind of holding their back, that their quote unquote golden generation that the phrase has been thrown around a lot recently, has been that. And it was not always center backs. No, when Tony Alderweireld and Vertonghen were basically in their prime, it just felt like Belgium never really had fullbacks that or wing backs that they could rely on. And here, just the back line did kind of cost them a little bit here. Now it is unlucky, and just the only the one goal, and it's kind of deflected. And Belgium still had moments. I think Kevin De Bruyne played in. It felt like Kevin De Bruyne did get a little bit more involved in the second half. When once Tillmans came on, it did kind of move De Bruyne a little further up in his quote unquote 10 position, and he was able to be impactful. He had a couple shots that at least forced Mignon to make some pretty big saves. Mignon's been a very good keeper for France this tournament. And there was a couple times when he played. It looked like he played, Lukaku in on goal again, and just Lukaku again. Just he didn't have his most favorite uh, uh, tournament, but also Jeremy Doku again. Just as good as he is, he leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to final product as far as actions that lead to like a goal creation. Now he can set people up for an assist, but we didn't see, Bakayoko, for most of the tournament. We didn't really see Trossard tried on the left either. The one kind of fun thing was we did see Opendana kind of used, but then he was the one that was subbed out for I think Tielemans. We only saw Opendana for a couple of games and a couple of moments. So Belgium had all this kind of attacking flair, and they had options for Kevin De Bruyne to just feed off of. And, it just felt it was unfortunate that a lot of those opportunities came to Lukaku, and then on the flip side, it just felt they weren't necessarily good enough at the back, and so that is where we leave with Belgium, and, so France gets Portugal, and so as far as the remaining contests, we have Romania and the Netherlands, and so Gakpo gets the first goal, and I do want to call out Schlotton, the PSV defender. Kind of mentioned him a little bit for in the last game versus Austria. Eh, Man, did he really show up? Now it took a while for Netherlands to actually get going because Romania looked like they had the better of the better of the time, the opening 10, 15, or 12, 15 minutes or so. But once Netherlands were able to kind of withstand a little of that wave, where it was just constant pressing and constant turnovers, and there were crosses, and there were balls kind of flying kind of near the Netherlands goal in that first 15 that first wave, I guess you can say. But as the Netherlands started to kind of control things a little bit, Schlotton was a little under pressure, and he took a little of a risk, but he's able to turn the guy that was kind of getting near him, and then he played a fantastic through ball to find Xavi Simons. Xavi Simons turned, then he was able to find Cody Gakpo, and Gakpo basically had a 1v1 chance versus the Romanian fullback, and Gakpo just took him to town basically. Doing kind of what we've seen Gakpo do, where he's able to kind of bait someone in, then he does a touch to kind of go around him, get to the to get the ball on his right foot, and here he unloads with a really fierce shot to beat the keeper near post. Just a fantastic goal, and Gakpo has just carried this Netherlands team that has been really mediocre in most respects. But Gakpo's been he's at least showed up, uh, and then it did just relieve a little bit more of the pressure because after that Netherlands really did take control of things, and if not for some a tremendous defending by the Spurs defender Dragishin, where He even had a goal line clearance. He had a couple blocks, couple big blocks. It was amazing that it was still just a 1-0 game, even going into like the 70th minute, where uh, just Netherlands all of a sudden just took control, and from about the 20th minute on, and didn't really lose it. And it was just whether or not it was from a couple keeper saves or a couple big blocks. Just Netherlands had no issues creating chances, but they still weren't able to necessarily make anything count. And then there was a moment where Cody Gakpo received the ball at like the 60th minute or so. He received the ball kind of kind of near his own box and basically had an 80-yard sprint, just going past everyone. And then he was able to kind of get towards the top of the box of the Romania box. It basically goes coast to coast and has a shot, it leads to a corner kick, and basically Netherlands score on that corner kick, and it's very similar to what happened in the USA game, kind of foreshadow something, but in this case, it actually was called back for an offside. So Cody Gakpo nearly got his second goal after the corner kick, where the ball just kind of bounced and he was able to get onto a rebound. But it doesn't matter because minutes after that, Gakpo again was able to get onto a loose ball, basically bodies a defender, but being because he's like 6'3" or 6'4". He's got his stretch with his legs. He can go for days. It feels amazing that Jurgen Klopp played him in anything other than an inside left winger because he just looks Herculeanly good. And he put on a performance that was player of the tournament good. But before I get to that, here, Netherlands get their second goal by Gakpo, just beating a defender to a ball on a loose ball. The ball is basically on the touchline, and he's able to basically keep it from going in, to keep it from going out of bounds. So he has a nice little carry here, and then he's got the reach with his legs to be able to find Daniel Mallon for an easy square ball. And at this point, I was wondering, had the manager Koeman messed up again because it's still just a it's still just a 1-0 game, and Gakpo was not just doing great to get some shots off and to be creative that way. He also had a couple of really nice flicks. And unfortunately for him, just his teammates weren't able to do anything with like backheel flick passes that play people in on goal that should have been basically tap-ins. Gakpo was doing everything really, as well as he was beating his man and getting some really dangerous crosses into the box as well. And just the only problem was he was crossing it in for like a 5'9", 5'8" Xavi Simmons or Memphis Depay, and you had a 6'7" Wout Weghorst that could have probably done a little bit better. And I was wondering, was it a mistake not to bring him on earlier than you did? But it doesn't matter because you get the second goal that basically did kill the game. Now, the one thing that Romania can have a little gripe on is it did seem like they had a breakaway on, and there was it was Nathan Ake or someone kind of moved his head to a ball, and there was a little bit of a high boot. But it's play acting because the Romania player didn't actually get anywhere near the player's head, and basically the ref had a early whistle, and this stopped a breakaway, and it happened before the Netherlands got their second goal to go ahead. So it definitely was something to highlight and remember. So this easily could have been the going the opposite way, but that said, Netherlands were good, or at least Cody Gakpo. Cody Gakpo was really good. Denzel Dumfries was really good as well. We saw Dumfries instead of Gertruda. Uh, I mean, it's still not necessarily perfect. Schlatten was good on the ball, but I don't really know how he is defensively. Him and Reinders seemed to at least it'd be a little bit better of a partnership than what we'd seen with Veerman. Though Veerman did come on in the second half. But that said, because I was wondering, would Gini Ronaldo basically get the start? That said, there was a lot of times when there was just no protection in front of the back line, uh, and a better team that had been able to maybe get some of those turnovers, at least in the opening few minutes, probably would have given Van Dijk and De Vrij some fits. So that is kind of the only thing, and we'll see what Turkey is able to do. Turkey did not necessarily have their best game performance wise versus Austria, which we're about to get to. But Turkey before that were one of the more fun kind of attack minded sides, and it seemed like they changed a little bit their setup to play Austria. They played a back three. They kind of played a little bit without the ball more. They didn't have Chanalagu, one of their controllers that they've relied on in the center of the pitch. So getting him back, will that change a little bit of Turkey? Will they get back to being their high flying selves? And if so, we have a fantastic game set up between the Netherlands and Turkey, or Turkey A. And that's kind of leading off where we are with the final group that we have, with Austria and Turkey. And it felt like this game was had the potential, maybe even the best one of the bunch. Now I don't necessarily know if we got that, but we did get a lot of drama. We even got a goal, 60 seconds into the game, where Turkey A was able to score off a corner kick. Great delivery it sent in by Arda Güler for both of these, and they score on two corner kicks. So it's kind of funny how Austria are this team that's set to press really well, and they're organized and all this other stuff, and they're undone by two set pieces, which probably wouldn't have made Ralph Ragnick that happy. Uh, and the delivery really did basically create the second goal. Demior almost had to work to miss it than necessarily score it, but it still, he had to be there and was able to get that header. Demior was able to get both of their goals. And then Austria made some changes as well. They brought on Alexander Press. He didn't start the game, but came back on. Offered a little bit more, I thought, going forward for them as the fullback role. They were down 2 goals, so they needed to do something. But they also brought in the Grealish, the 6 foot kind of four striker for Freiburg, and it's a kind of a surprise that he didn't get his start, because all of a sudden Austria got back into the game. He scores to make it 2-1, and then after that point, Turkey A were completely against it, defending for their lives. But to be fair, they were also able to offer a little bit of a counter threat. There were a couple of times when I thought Yilmaz had a couple of breakaways where better decision making, instead of just trying to go for goal and trying to go for the glory himself. They probably could have killed the game off. They weren't. You were wondering, were they maybe going to regret some of that? But the second half was just really all Austria. It was all hands on deck. Turkey were defending with the three center backs. They were playing really deep. They didn't really have a way to escape out of the pressure outside of the few counters that they were able to offer. And Austria was sending in delivery, and really dangerous delivery at that. And Austria ended up having like 20 plus shots to, I think, 6 overall. They had an XG of over 3, but it doesn't matter because they weren't able to actually get the goal that they needed. And then at the very end, it was like the last kick of the game. They were able to send another really dangerous ball into the box. I forget, it was either an open play or a free kick, but it's a fantastic delivery. Uh, and Grillitsch or someone's able to get on the end of it, gets a great head on it. And I mentioned how Diego Costa maybe had save of the tournament. This could possibly be save of the tournament as well by the Turkish keeper, because it is an unbelievable save at basically it's the last kick of the game. That could have made it 2-2, and we could have gone to extra time, and who knows what would have happened in extra time. But what amazing save is there, and this game led up to it. It wasn't necessarily the prettiest as far as open play kind of uh, as far as like passes that breaking people down, or kind of dribbles. It really was just chaos. That was chaos is what we were promised, and we got chaos. There was no organization. There was no. There's very little time where someone just had time on the ball to just kind of look up and pick his moments. It was relentless pressure, and it led to it led to an entertaining, chaotic, and drama filled 90 minutes. Really one of it was up there. We didn't necessarily see a lot of great soccer play, but we did see just a lot of again, I keep saying the word chaos. It was chaotic. So that is where we get. And I think the funny thing about Turkey or Turkey A is going into Qatar. They were really a team that was talked up a little bit about coming into this. Now, I don't necessarily know if people kind of going into the whole regional thing, it being kind of a Muslim kind of World Cup. Maybe you would pick a Muslim nation, and with that kind of thinking would have worked out, because that's what Morocco was able to you know, uh, uh, piggyback off on. But a lot of people thought it was going to be Turkey coming into that, and weirdly enough, Turkey were one of the more kind of disappointing teams of that tournament. And a couple years later, and we've seen them develop Yilmaz, Yildiz, a young Juventus player. Yilmaz, player for Galatasaray. Arda Güler as well, first at Fenerbahce, now at Real Madrid. Artu Kakulu, a again, Galatasaray, but a player that was able to play Champions League football and scored versus Man United in the Champions League last group stage. So Turkey has had a couple times to kind of build up a little of their depth a little bit more, maybe a little older now, a little more seasoned, and they are now a dark horse that people need to take seriously. And we'll see what they do versus the Netherlands. And so we get in that bracket. So in one bracket we have all of the favorites just kind of grumped into each other, and then the other one we have England and the Netherlands. And whether or not they face each other in a semifinal, that's probably what you would pick if you were doing chalk, as they say. But they have to get through kind of the two underdog stories in Switzerland and Turkey. So we still have a long way to go. We'll see what I guess this weekend offers us, and so that is where we are for that. And then to get to the topic of conversation, really, I guess in stateside, we get to U.S. and Uruguay, a game that it felt like we all knew we had to win. We had to go into it with the win, and the way that played out, it almost felt like Berhalter and the team just wanted to get a draw, wanted to get something respectable, and maybe rely on other team on the other game to go their way to advance. And I didn't really understand that. And yeah, so we lose with maybe a goal by Oliveira. It's still up into question whether or not the goal should have counted with the offsides. It is so hard to imagine that that line would have been accurate or not. So the commentators were right to gripe on that. But that said, it, you look at the stats. I think we ended up with basically three shots. 90 minutes into the game, it was three shots. I think we ended with six, maybe two on target total. Uruguay had nothing to play for, and they lost the player to a really dangerous, bad injury. 20 minutes into the game, you didn't really understand what they really had to go for it, and I didn't necessarily feel like they were giving it their go. Uh, it felt like they didn't want to concede, so they defended, pretty hard, but didn't feel like they necessarily cared having the ball. It ended up basically being, I think we had like 52% of it, so we did have majority ish of the ball, but we didn't. It's not really like we controlled it. It's not really like we were creating chance after chance. We were really threatening. The first half was very very stale, and I thought the only one that was really kind of creating some danger was Balogun when we were trying to look him in, trying to play him in. And unfortunately for us, he gets hurt on one of the kind of the one of the few chances that we were able to make. And after Balogun went off, Pepe came on, and Pepe was not able to save Berhalter. And I'm gonna get to it. Pepe is just a different striker, and maybe in a different kind of setup with different players around him, he absolutely worked. But to me, when Ricardo Pepe came on, we turned into almost England with Harry Kane. Almost in England, if England had two Phil Fodens, and you played them on the right and the left, because that's kind of what we did with Gio and Pulisic. So I didn't like the lineup that we went with. There was no Tim Weah, so we had to figure out a way to play someone on the right side, and we instead decided to play Pulisic there. So we took Pulisic out of his probably his best position to play him on the right, and we decided to fit Gio Reyna further upfield than necessarily in one of the midfield spots. And Gio Reyna was quite good. He was actually, I think he was maybe even our man of the match. But it just felt it was it didn't necessarily feel like it was probably the best way to play him. I guess I can say that. I've been harping on maybe this. Why haven't we seen him played as R10, where he could have found people ahead of him. With Pepe, I don't necessarily know if that would have worked, but one thing in Kansas with Balogun, it definitely would have. And Gio, the two chances that we had were really through him. There was one time where Tyler Adams had a really nice little dribble. I didn't feel it. I didn't really feel Tyler Adams had a good game, but he did well on the dribble, and he was able to play Gio Reyna. Gio Reyna had a square ball that just the keeper was able to read it. Maybe the pass could have been a little bit better, but he's trying to reach Balogun, so that was pretty good. And then there was a moment where Reyna had a terrific kind of through ball to find McKennie, and McKennie releases it on time, and it's just Florian Balogun just kind of walked just tad offsides, and then going for the loose ball, tries basically gets clattered into the keeper, and it almost feels like that was when he got hurt. There were a couple of moments beforehand as well where he was getting kind of clattered into. So it was a physical contest. Uh, And once Balogun went off, we lost our ability to create any kind of runs ahead that Gio Reyna would have liked. Another thing too is the way that this game started. Uh, we got a weird camera angle. It was almost like a bird's eye view, as you can say, and I hated it watching it live. But on the rewatch, it was actually really helpful because you really did get a set. You got basically a glimpse of the entire like half of the field, basically, the way that it was so high up. So you got to see who was making runs and who wasn't, and our team was very very stagnant. The only time I saw someone running to the ball was Gio Reyna running backwards to go to it, which is not maybe a couple of times Anthony Robinson would make runs ahead. That was not good. So I think that was kind of an issue as well. It just felt Berhalter didn't really seem to recognize once Balogun went off. That was the only guy to run ahead of the ball, and you had everyone else that just kind of wanted the ball to their feet. And he went with a midfield that was very good at just kind of winning second balls and winning duels, and being physical. It was quote unquote it was nicknamed the MMT a couple of years ago, or MMA with McKennie, Adams, and Musa, and it worked in that respect. We were at least giving Uruguay what they normally give two teams. So that, it's not necessarily like it was bad in that respect. We did kind of take Uruguay a little bit out of the game that they wanted to play. It's not necessarily like they had a lot of time in the ball either. They didn't really create many chances for Darian Nunes. We kind of took him out of the game. I was really worried about him, coming into this, and there weren't really until the second half. There weren't really moments where he was really that threatening, and because I think at halftime, I mentioned how we only had a few shots. They only had maybe four. So it was a very cagey, I guess you can say, game. Another thing too that I noticed was so the way that we're playing, the way we're trying to build up. We've got Gio Reyna, the best player on the ball, further upfield. He can't really get it to him. Pulisic likewise, he's looking for it, not really being able to get to him. We got Matt Turner on the ball. Matt Turner was terrible with his feet again, and that'll be something I get to later on. But we've got Richards and Ream that have the ball on early goal kicks, early possessions. And Tyler Adams to me was not doing well enough to show for it. Weston McKennie was trying to do it. Musa was a little bit. Tyler Adams was trying to basically look like he was trying to do something, but really he was looking to basically be marked the whole game, in my opinion. I thought he was afraid of it. And so that meant the responsibility to possess the ball upfield, progress the ball upfield, fell on Chris Richards, who struggled with that the entire tournament, and Tim Ream, who also had some issues in the other games at this. And frankly, the two chances that Uruguay get come from this. So I don't want to necessarily go at them a little bit. I don't necessarily think it's necessarily their game, and I don't necessarily want to say they did a terrible job of doing it. It's just one of those where if you get asked to do something that's you're not really comfortable with so many times, eventually maybe one or two isn't going to come off, and that's basically what happened. So. Uh, one of the biggest chances that Uruguay was able to get, and frankly, there was a lot of controversy in its chance, but it's looking like had they scored, it would have counted. So here, I think it's Adams or Pulisic has the ball in the beginning, passes it back, and Adams or someone, maybe it's Scally, gets on the ball and immediately plays it backwards to Chris Richards. When you could have maybe done a square pass, you could have maybe turned a little bit. It's safe, fine. You're recycling the possession. Chris Richards finds Tim Ream, and Tim Ream's able to get on it. And he's got a lot of space ahead of him, and Tim Ream kind of takes that space up. And then he's got Jay Reyna for an easy ball ahead of him. He can maybe I don't really know if anyone's necessarily making a run at this point. He's got a lot of options. He could even go backwards if he wants to, and he instead tries to fit in a very risky pass in the middle of the field to Christian Pulisic, and Uruguay. I think it's Ugarte is able to read it. They intercept it, and that leads to a turnover. And then Chris Richards basically has to go to ground to stop a transition. Chris Richards eats a yellow here, but Uruguay are able to basically almost have a quick kick taken or an advantage given where the ref is handing out a yellow card and the play is still continuing, and Uruguay are able to get a quick counter on, and they basically have someone that tries to beat Turner or get a ball past Turner. Looks like it's going into an empty net, only for Tim Ream to clear it. but that wasn't that was not ideal. That was all basically self-inflicted. So that wasn't great. So the ref, the commentators were annoyed with the ref, and for good reason. Oh, another thing too is there was a lot of stoppages of play. That the field looked small. Field didn't look great either. So there's a reason why this wasn't the prettiest game, and that's why the numbers weren't necessarily great. Though I also think you need to have movement. You really do. And if nothing else, you need to have. If you don't have movement ahead of you, people that have the ball, at their feet, whether it's in midfield or defenders, they need to be able to carry it too. We didn't seem to have the ability to do that. But so the refs were a topic of conversation. There was a handball as well where it looked like Christian Pulisic maybe had the better of Viña, and the advantage wasn't given. It was possible a chance for us to have a counter, so that was a little of annoying. I mentioned how the one player that did give us some movements was Balogun, and when Balogun went off, Pepe wasn't really horrible, but he was dropping to link up the play a little bit more. And just when Pepe got the ball, there would be no one ahead of him. Just Christian Pulisic wouldn't be looking to kind of make a disguise run. Gio Reyna wouldn't be doing that either. It's not really in Gio Reyna's game to do that. It isn't Pulisic's, but Pulisic doesn't normally play on the right. Maybe he does a little bit for AC Milan, but he hasn't played for the U.S. at least on the right side for a very long time. So it was just it was unfortunate. I don't necessarily know how much different it would have been had Balogun been able to play the whole game, but you took out the one runner that we had, and really all the chances that we basically created were because of that, because of his runs, and you took that out, and that just kind of changed us. Another thing I think it did is it didn't feel like Uruguay's backline, like Ranu or Rashu or Olivia, were afraid of Pepe running behind him. And once that was the case, the fullbacks of Uruguay, I thought were able to go a little forward, and I thought we saw a little bit more of that. We saw Vena, making some disguise runs, at, getting behind Scally a couple of times, and we saw the other player kind of doing that a little bit too, taking a little bit more chances. Where we weren't really able to do that, we had Robinson, offering that. It didn't feel like Scally was able to really offer Pulisic a whole lot of help. So at halftime, we were competitive, but it was still ish, and we had a couple of crosses, but not a lot. And one thing that Berhalter's been really known for, Berhalter Ball, has been getting lots of crosses, whether or not they come off or not, in any game. In the World Cup, we averaged like 30 crosses a game, and I'll get to it later on. The number that we finished with stunned me. I watched it live. I even rewatched it. I was still amazed by the number that I saw. So that'll be something I get to later on. So we're wondering, would there be changes, because it didn't feel like this was working, and it's Berhalter, so of course not. We did have a couple chances. So there's a random pass that finds McKinney. He has a good take, but off balance and he fires it over. McKinney didn't have his best tournament. I thought too often Gio Reyna was dropping for the ball, and so he gets it. Great. You've got no one really ahead of you other than like maybe Anthony Robinson. It just it didn't feel right. Pulisic, I thought, was standing around way too much when he wasn't getting the ball, where it almost felt like he was a little out of the game as well. So the way we lined up, just the balance didn't necessarily feel great. And then around like the 60th minute mark, it did feel like there was maybe a little reprieve in the Bolivia and Panama game. Bolivia tied Panama. The stadium started to celebrate. Berhalter even told the team it was 1-1. And all this happens as we're trying to the play that leads up to the free kick is what I want to get to. So uh, the we're trying to press. There, I think it's Pepe. Pepe does a really good job to actually make the ball go backwards all the way to the keeper, and they're able to kick it long and able to win that ball, and then someone's able to basically, I think it's Valverde. Valverde just boots it upfield, where Darwin Núñez and it's Tim Ream in a sprint, and Ream struggles. He allows the ball to bounce, and if not for Chris Richards, or if not for Anthony Robinson or Scally, someone's able to actually help Tim Ream out. But passes the ball back to Turner in safe hands, but Turner just launches it. In fact, the commentator made a joke about Turner goes into eject mode. but he was doing that way too often, in my opinion, to a point where he was hurting any kind of we weren't able to have any kind of momentum. Anytime the ball went backwards to him, he was giving it away. Here, it's fine. He was under pressure. It's not that's not the reason I'm going to. Yeah, I'm bringing this up. I'll get to that later on. Uh, so he launches it, gives the ball back to Uruguay. They go down the other flank. And here it's Anthony Robinson that has to deal with a long ball that he doesn't really he misjudges the bounce, misplays it. Ray McGinn has to intervene. This time he opts instead of playing it back to Matt Turner. I think he had this in mind. He didn't want to give the ball back to Turner, so Turner would just launch the ball and boot it away. I think this went into Tim Ream's mind because he has an easy pass back to him, and he's just seen Turner just freak out. He's seen Turner freak out anytime the ball's been played to him, really. So Tim Ream decides to instead try to find feet, try to keep possession a little bit. So he finds, I think it's Tyler Adams, and then Tyler Adams run times it quickly to Anthony Robinson, who's basically cornered on the touchline. And Robinson either has to let this go out of bounds and just eat it, or basically make a quick decision just without even thinking. Basically, he plays a blind pass in the middle of the field. We lose possession. Uruguay get it back, and Jay Reyna just decides to not really want to deal with this, and it's a cheap free kick, and it's all avoidable, really. It's just it's a gimme of a free kick, and then that is the moment when the crowd kind of started celebrating a little bit. They started seeing the goal was given. Berhalter told them that was the other game was tied 1-1, which I don't really. I understand maybe him trying to if someone on the pitch was wondering why the stadium was celebrating, it was kind of weird. They started chanting USA USA, uh, or if Berhalter told them the score just in general. It's not. It is kind of a weak mindset, to be honest. You need to take matters into your own hands. You kind of limping in by just by that. In fact, the commentator said there other teams in the past have done that. They've relied on other results for the other teams to advance. I think in 2014 we lost to Germany and we had to have Ghana beat Portugal to advance. In 2002. Uh, I think we lost to the team that was hosting the tournament. I think we lost to South Korea, and we needed a good result for us to be able to advance in that one as well. I don't because we beat Portugal. I don't actually remember all the teams that were with us, but I feel like that was kind of the case as well. So it has happened in the past, and it could have happened, but it doesn't really matter anymore because Panama destroyed Bolivia. So we still had to a draw wouldn't have been enough. We had to actually win the game, and that should have been the mindset coming into this. We haven't beaten anyone of note under Greg Berhalter, in my opinion. We've had a couple decent draws, couple decent results in the World Cup, as everyone remembers. We did draw Brazil coming into this, so it hasn't been all bad, but it hasn't. The way that people talk about this guy as if he's the only coach available in the world that can coach these players, he's not. He hasn't shown that, and so uh, that's getting ahead of myself a little bit. So here we give him a free kick. It was poor by Jay Reyna, in my opinion. You can go with him a little bit for this. It's a cheap foul, but there's still a lot of ways to prevent this. And I think it's a great ball, whipped in. It really is. And then Tim Reams beaten on the jump. Matt Turner maybe could do better on the first save. He doesn't. He parries it and parries it right to the other team's Oliveira's basically legs, and he just has to just get contact to kind of knee this in a little bit. Uh, but it did feel like it was offsides. So and the way that the lines were drawn, it was weird. I think the commentators were right to harp on that uh, because that changes the mindset. Where if you have to win the game, now you need to score 2 goals, and now you almost get rushed a little bit, where if it was still 0-0, you could still kind of because it's only in the 70th minute or so, 75th, whatever it was, I think it was 70th. Still 20 minutes to show to how to, manipulate a way to get a goal to where that's all you need to win the game, and you win the game, you advance. So conceding did factor in. I am going to admit to that, but it is what it is. Still plenty of time to at least do something. We could have at least scored. that would have been nice. So how would we respond? And we did create a couple chances. So it wasn't pretty, but we did create one where it looked like Robinson was able to do well. It was just a loose ball that Robinson was able to beat everyone to. So good energy by him, and he gets the goalie to come out and makes a bit of an error. McKinney is right there. Yeah, chip it. Go with your left foot. Now, I saw someone online suggest that he doesn't have a left foot. I mean, I'm not at their level, but I didn't have a left foot, for all of my youth playing days either. And then it took a year kind of working on it through indoor. But towards the end of it, I actually preferred using my left foot than the right. Not just by dribbling, but I just learned to actually use it. Now again, I'm not a pro or anything, but they train hours every single day. It's not. To me, it's not like it takes some kind of mental fortitude to be able to learn how to do something differently with the opposite foot that you're maybe weak with. I don't understand why more people aren't necessarily gifted on using both feet. But it's not just West McKinney. That's a thing everywhere in front of Europe. Salah has that issue. So it is what it is. But there's a reason why it's good to be two-footed. McKinney doesn't go for the chip. He instead tries to do a quick square ball into the box. Pepe gets it. Pepe is able to play to Pulisic, and by the time that happens, Pulisic has a shot, and it's basically blocked. And then Berhalter did make some changes. So and I'm going to say they were interesting changes. It's just had this happened a little bit earlier in the game, maybe it could have actually led to something. But again, it felt almost like he was like throwing paint onto a blank empty canvas, basically. Throwing stuff on a wall, seeing what would stick. Because we changed the entire shape, so it almost felt like we went to a 4-2-4. So we bring on Sargent, and we bring on Haji Wright. We moved Haji Wright and Sargent. We basically moved Pulisic almost to, I want to say, we almost played him as a second striker with Pepe, but we moved him on the left where he was more comfortable with. We used Haji Wright as the winger that was playing a little inside. We basically had a front four. We had Sargent to make some runs. Sargent at least made some runs, and we did create some chances by doing this. One, Gio plays a great ball into the box for Sargent. Sargent just gets this a little wrong. He takes too long with the touch, uh, and his cross is eventually blocked. If he gets it one time and tries it one time, maybe something can happen there. And then Wright yeah, had a couple of missed touches in the box as well. It's hard to come in cold as well. It's worth saying that. But here, Jay Reyna again, did a lovely give and go into the box. Has a nice little dribble as well to get by someone. And then I think Reyna plays in a pass that finds Haji Wright into the box, and he takes a touch, thinking he has time instead of just hitting it first time with his left foot. Again, swing it. Yep. Maybe he doesn't have a left foot again, but when he takes a touch, by that time he doesn't have time to get a shot off because it's going to be blocked. Now again, all of this is happening 100 miles an hour. I understand that. It's easy to see. It's easy to say stuff. In hindsight, it's easy to say stuff when we have a bird's eye view of things, when players are kind of tunnel vision or whatnot. But if Wright had been able to at least scan or know his awareness before Giorena played him the ball, he would have known Pepe was open, and all he needed was just a little square pass where Pepe would have been wide open. And had this gone in 1-1 with I don't know 8 minutes left to go in the game, maybe something could have happened. It was also one of the few moments when Giorena and Pulisic were able to play make into the box together. So the ideal opportunity, and it came late. Uh, but so it was I don't necessarily shambolic. It was just it was a Berhalter experience. I'll say it that way. There were a couple of good things and just a lot of what are you doing kind of things. And then it got to a point where it was more about experimenting than necessarily a plan that was in place. And the reason why that's a problem is we had a couple friendly games to try some things. We didn't take advantage of that, in my opinion. Uh, but another thing too is that second half, Turner really was a problem. Every time the ball went back to him, we weren't able to establish any kind of momentum. Anytime Turner got the ball, he didn't have someone trying to show for him either, other than the center backs. Tyler Adams was a traffic cone. And I was a little bit surprised by that because I thought Tyler Adams was actually really good at this part of the game, and people were saying he's not. Uh, People online that at least I have watched him a little bit more closely in his club level, or in the past. Just anyways, people that I was following that have watched more games with him was saying I was wrong about that. But another thing too is he's never really been someone to kind of break through lines as well. And Uruguay weren't necessarily being a lot of there wasn't a lot of intense pressure. Uh, and it was almost like the Declan Rice kind of thing where you needed if you're gonna play as a single pivot, which is what we did, we changed the formations in this game. Or basically we changed formations with Tyler Adams getting back into the side. Before it felt like we were playing a double pivot. We were playing a Johnny in there with a Gio, or we were playing a Musa or McKinney together in some cases, or we were fitting Gio Reyna in there. Uh, but it was we weren't just doing it with Tyler Adams. And once Tyler Adams got back in there, it seemed like that changed the shape of the entire midfield. You moved Weston McKinney further forward. You played with basically two eights, and that is the way that Liverpool found a way to play for like 5 seasons under Jurgen Klopp. Man City were playing like that for a little bit. Man City also had Rodri. Liverpool had Fabinho. And it's one thing to have a holder that sits in that position. Basically, they drop in, become basically your third center back. You play your fullbacks a little higher. At least that's what Klopp was doing. It felt like Berhalter was trying to copy what Klopp was doing at one point. But you also need someone when you're that single pivot. You need to be able to progress with the ball. You need to be able to show for yourself, get it on the turn, and being able to pass it or advance with it. Tyler Adams was not doing that. I feel like we had someone on the bench and Johnny Cardoza that can do that, that showed he could do that versus Brazil. Musa was showing he could do that versus Brazil. And I just think that was a big problem. I'll get to that a little bit later on, but that was something that I was wondering why all of a sudden Tyler Adams was being picked every single game, and then you find out how after the Timothy Weah red card after the Panama game, Tyler Adams was asked, "Well, did you guys discuss that, or did you guys discuss things that happened after the game in the locker room?" He said no. Him and Greg Berhalter like to talk about life, life outside of football, which is great. It's great to. It's great that someone is there that you see in a father figure or a mentor and whatnot. But that to me suggests he's also you've got a connection there that is almost more than just player to coach. And maybe that's the reason why all of a sudden Tyler Adams started getting picked. Maybe Berhalter has favorites, and I don't necessarily want to go there, but just and I liked Tyler Adams. Tyler Adams was one of our more important players in 2022. Everyone agreed with that. He hasn't played football for the last 2 years, and I think he came rusty. He was only able to play the first half of the first two games, and we were just forcing him in there, and he was rusty. I think that disrupted everything we were trying to do. That is frustrating, and basically, towards the end, we also saw Weston McKennie finally used as a right back. So uh, again, it was just throwing stuff at the wall. It almost seemed like we basically went to a 5-2-2 towards the end, and moved Weston McKennie to a right back when we brought in Malik Tillman. But another thing that was kind of a problem is it wasn't the worst idea to have a lot of players ahead of the ball, but because and this happens when you're playing with people that haven't really played much minutes together, is the communication isn't necessarily there. And we had 5 people in a line at one point just looking for the ball, and you've got the center backs with it. So what is Tim Ream or Chris Richards or even a Tyler Adams supposed to do in this situation where they've got 30 yards of space where there's just no one there, and you've got Uruguay players kind of either marking them or standing in front of them. What are they supposed to do? There was no one was they weren't picking their moments to have a couple people run to the ball and to have people uh, trying to do a shoulder run. Or the other side of that is when you have everyone already up there. That's who you mark. You didn't have anyone able to make a disguise run, which was also kind of a problem. So uh, communication, not being able to not experimenting enough. It all just kind of showed its ugly head. And I do think towards the end we did see a little bit more of Pulisic towards the end. But it just wasn't enough. I didn't understand why we played him out of position in the one game when we had to have him score. You play him on the right, and he's going to play make for Balogun maybe. I would want to play him as close to the goal as possible, and he was trying to. We were playing him to try to almost create for others. It was not the game to do that. So yeah, 3 shots in at 90 minutes. I think we ended with 6. So so to kind of end it off with, I can't say it's necessarily a predictable outcome. As pessimistic as it was, I was like, well, surely they'll be able to do the absolute bare minimum and get through the group. And yes, as already mentioned it, the red card versus Panama happens, and so something didn't go your way. You thought you were going to have a cakewalk, and you didn't get it. So were you able to overcome like the one obstacle that finally fell in your that finally didn't fall in your lap? We weren't able to do it. So I think, and that's going to be something that I hint on. What do we need in an international manager? We do not need someone that people are buddy buddy with. We need someone that's a puzzle solver, and that'll be something that I get to later. Uh, Another thing too is 2 goals for Bolivia. It's not good enough. Now Pepe having stinker after stinker isn't ideal either. Pepe's only 21. We need to remember that. This team is still incredibly young. There's still reasons to think there's room for growth here. But yeah, Pepe having having the misses that he had a moment to have a stake a little bit for who maybe for that striker spot. He didn't necessarily do well to I guess improve that. I'll say, but at the same time, it almost seems like he does have a little more Harry Kane in him than not. And if that's the case, you need to have runners with him. So when he drops for the ball to try to link up, you need to have people making runs ahead of him. Usually, there's Tim Weah, and that's kind of the other issue. We found out how important Tim Weah is to our front line because he's the one that makes runs. It's him and Balogun, and there's no one else. Other than that, you've got a lot of people that want the ball to their feet. You got people that want to run to the ball, not people that want to run ahead of it. And so that really did show up as well. So was it simply the players were overhyped, overrated, like Fox said? I do think you can look at some of these and say maybe you can look at them a little differently, but it's not going to be the players that people think. First one I'm going to look at is Tyler Adams. I already mentioned it before. Now he's rusty, and there's totally a lot of that. I get. Uh, but him being rusty and him being quote unquote a leader of the team, he could have told the coach, play Johnny Cardoza instead of me for this really important game. Because I think that hurt us. I think by playing Tyler Adams back and also switching the formations that we were doing versus that worked versus Brazil, to go from a double pivot to a single, and to have Adams just kind of be almost I want to say traffic cone, but just not really helpful when it came to building possessions from the back or just having the ball at all. Now Tyler Adams did do a pretty good job of cleaning up some danger. He had a couple really nice moments where he recognized maybe Darwin Nunes was going to make a run and blocked him. So he did have that. He did have his game awareness. We can say, but that really did hurt us. Also, the we didn't have our right side. Tim Weah and Serginho Dest have been what we have relied on for the last 2 or 3 years, and we see how important that was. Joe Scally can do a lot of good things defensively, can't offer what Serginho Dest can do. So missing Serginho Dest, I think, really did show up too. And is he overrated or overhyped? He's a dime a dozen, really, for his club team, in the club game, really. But he offers us a way to kind of pick out locks a little bit. He's a little more, he gets the ball in the final third. He's got a great shot on him. He has also got a great eye for a pass. He's a playmaker when he gets the ball, and we did not offer that. We did not we're able to have that. So that was a big problem, a big miss. McKennie looked off it, and I don't really know what it was. It just I thought the touches were poor. The final decisions were poor. McKennie came to a point where he was undroppable. I didn't understand that. Played every single game. Uh, I didn't understand why all of a sudden those MLS rumors really happened as the tournament happened. I didn't love that, so I really hope it doesn't happen. Because if it does, I'm gonna look at that as a distraction and blame a little of that distraction on this. It might feel unfair, but that'll just be what I do. Chris Richards was poor with his feet. He's been fantastic for Crystal Palace, being defensive. I'm gonna assume next time I watch a Palace game, Chris they don't rely on Chris Richards for building possessions from the back and having the ball at his feet because he looked uncomfortable doing it, both on the right side and the left side. You know, really uncomfortable versus Colombia when he's played on the left, and just looked uncomfortable the entire tournament. Really, one of the first things that we did in the opening few minutes in the Uruguay game was Richards had a terrible back pass that could have been a disaster. I felt like he did that versus Panama as well. So that wasn't great. And then the final one is Matt Turner. Um, I don't know, and I don't know what to do with him because he's not playing for his club team, and he's so poor with his feet. And we just, I don't necessarily say we have to play like a club team, like we have to play like Man City when the ball gets played to him, but to establish any kind of rhythm at all, you need to have a keeper that can, in, in moments, find a teammate and not just when the ball is played to him, where he freaks out and just wants to boot it away. It just, it was a problem, and I don't necessarily think he's as bad as he showed. I do think he hasn't played football. He hasn't played any kind of club football at all this season. Didn't do it at Arsenal. Didn't really do it with Forest. So the keeper is the one position where if he went to the MLS, I'd be okay with it. The keeper has to play every game. I don't necessarily know if I buy everyone else having to play all the time. I just saw Gia Reyna be basically performer of the tournament for us without playing club football for the entire year. Uh, but for the keeper, I do think you need to be playing. So maybe Matt Turner can look to try to find some kind of move. It would have been nice if maybe he would be looked at, not necessarily McKinney. But that's just kind of where I'm at. But and again, uh, uh, excuses or not, it's enough to get past Panama and Bolivia, even with a red card. And we've lost to Panama now two times now, uh, in the last year or so. I think we lost to them in the Gold Cup. But I want to do think why why was this different? Why even someone as pessimistic as me, why is this all doom and gloom now? Is there something to be positive about? The way we looked versus Brazil in that friendly was not a fluke. Brazil showed up. They played. They're basically the full 11. Now, a friendly, you're not going to go as hard as possible, but they showed up to play competitive. And now Brazil also were able to create basically 10 chances where Matt Turner had to make 10 really big saves. But we also made Allison work that game. It's probably the best we looked that Christian Pulisic looked. The way that Gio Reyna was able to feed balls in, the way that we were able to use Tim Weah's runs, even Pepe, I think, started that game. And it's just we had something. We had something there. We also seemed to be playing. We played basically. We didn't play with Tyler Adams, and I think that's really it. We started with Jonas Musa. It was Musa, Gio Reyna, and McKennie as the midfield three. And when I saw that lineup in real time, I was thinking, you're not playing with a six versus Brazil. What are we doing? And instead, we basically played with three really technical players that were good at controlling the ball, and Musa was quite good. Now, Musa maybe had maybe one slight mistake, but then he moved and he came off, and then it was Johnny Cardoso playing in there instead. And we were able to create so many good opening plays by building basically through by passing through them, starting with either a turner or with a defender, finding a way to get our number six, get the ball on the turn, whether it was Musa or Johnny Cardozo. We were doing a fantastic job on Brazil, kind of just getting lost on how to press us and find the open man and move the ball quickly. We looked really, really, really good. Now it is a friendly. That wasn't a fluke, and I also think we looked better versus Colombia than the scoreline showed. Now, obviously, it didn't start off well, losing. Basically, it was 2-0 after like I don't know 15 minutes into the game. We looked better than what the scoreline showed. There were a bunch of subs that we made afterwards, and then we just couldn't pass from the back. with Cameron Carter-Vickers, who probably shouldn't get another call-up, in my opinion, for a while. Carter-Vickers was very poor. I thought he was poor versus Venom when he came on as well. And once we took off Tim Ream, Chris Richards really struggled with passing from the back. And then we took off a couple other midfielders. We took off Jay Reyna, and we just lost control after the last 15 minutes of the game. And Colombia was able to score basically 3 or 4 goals afterwards. So it was not 5-1. It really was like a 2-1 kind of game where I thought we actually were we were almost equal in chances, equal in kind of at least final third entries before those changes. So and again, friendly is a friendly. It's not the real thing. You don't have the intensity. You don't have people pressing like mad. You don't have people going to ground, threatening, risking injury. But I do think what you do with the ball when you can recognize how to move it, that was something there. That's something we haven't looked like in a long time. And there is something here. It's just, is Greg Berhalter the right person to lead to lead that? That I'm not really sure. I already mentioned how Tyler Adams coming back in changed everything we liked. That was really good. Uh, Pepe or Balogun and Weah or Robinson being the only runners. We need to do that. That's one thing we need to figure out, whether or not it's Haji Wright, uh, whether Brendan Aronson can play, I guess, forward, but is he going to be a runner or is he going to be a ball to feet kind of player too? We need people to make selfish runs forward ahead of the ball to make our playmakers work better. We need to figure that out because basically we have two kind of double tens in Christian Pulisic and Villarreal. Now I think Villarreal is 6'1". I think you could mold him into be whatever player you want. Now maybe not necessarily a forward player, but what I'm saying is I'm looking at how Spain is playing with Fabian Ruiz and Rodri, and I'm wondering why can't Giorena be Fabian Ruiz? I don't really see, and I think another thing too is when I get to Giorena and the way I'll praise him, he was very good defensively. His defensive actions were incredible, much better than I was expecting. His work rate was very good. So the couple of times when he was played, in that kind of pivot midfield role, I think all of our best actions were when he was getting the ball in the turn and finding a pass and finding it to feet. Whether it was Balogun, whether it was Pulisic, but we scored the Balogun goal that he scored in versus Bolivia was because of Giorena. Giorena had the first ball to find Pulisic, and Pulisic in that little 10 roll then was able to find Balogun. So I think there's a lot of reasons to still feel hype. Now maybe you can play Pulisic as a 10. There's been all the talk, why aren't you playing Giorena as your 10? Maybe you play Pulisic as your 10. That way he has less defensive duties because I don't think Pulisic does a whole lot on the wing. Find someone to play on the wing for you. So you have Tim Rea on one side, or if people are going to go with Tim Rea after this, find someone to play on the right, and then find someone to play on the left. Haji Wright looks like he could maybe do something there. We'll have to see if anyone coming in from the Olympic side has some pace to them as well. But it's just, again, it becomes a situation of recognize how you go about attacking places on the field. What gives you the best opportunity to do that? We also need to find a way to build up a little bit of defensive depth as well. So other things that I was a little annoyed with. McKenna being undroppable, there was very little of Luca Del Torre. Malik Tillman got moments towards the end. All those times that Jay Reyna was taken off, Malik Tillman could have come on and maybe offered something. Musa not being played versus Panama. So I just think I didn't think that was a problem. Anthony Robinson, to me, weirdly, the note I have is he our Kyle Walker, where he's all energy, he's called Jedi Robinson, Jet Robinson, for a reason. He's got and his reputation is definitely good for that. He's good defensively as well, and he offers great runs. He's one of the few that actually does offer runs. But is he reliant on only doing an early cross? Now I think for Trinidad and Tobago, he actually had a fantastic goal as well. To be fair to him, I think he scored 2 goals actually in the 2 games for Trinidad and Tobago. Uh, so it's not necessarily like he's only reliant on that, but can he do a little bit more? Can he develop a little more technical skill on the ball? That There's a reason why I'm not the only one that has kind of looked at him like a little mini Annie Robinson of Liverpool. And Robinson has kind of had that issue at times too, where sometimes you just kind of he over reliant a little bit in one dimension, basically. Very good at what he does, but could that be improved a little bit? Otherwise, we do it does become a little. I think that's the reason why we have a lot of crosses. Uh, but that is what it is. Uh, so it's not all doom and gloom. I'm going to at least say that. Usually, I'm someone that is pessimistic, so I don't necessarily know uh, uh, if that means anything or not. But I am gonna put that out there. But the last topic I want to talk about is what is the objective here? What is success for this team or federation? And so is it not just being embarrassed on the world stage? The way hearing Alexi Lalas talk on Fox News, it feels like he just doesn't want to be embarrassed. You can do that. You can bunker down. There's a way to play where you can be successful in tournaments by not playing the most attractive football. So is that the idea? And I just think we need to come to a consensus on what is the goal or objective here. Is it to change the way the world thinks about soccer, which has long been said? I don't really know what that means. Uh, is it to develop a better player pool? Is it to expand the game? Is it to there are a lot of ways to look at this. It's not just a Greg Berhalter problem. So I do like the idea of expanding the discussion here because, frankly, we have a big problem in how soccer is covered in this country. Nearly everything is behind a paywall. ESPN does a great job, and to be fair to them, they dedicate a lot of personalities to the ESPN FC team. But most of their content is only exclusively on ESPN Plus or maybe their YouTube page. But you have to know to go to their YouTube page, meaning it's not really out there front and center to casuals. Watching ESPN on TV, which uh, I think one of the reasons why that Aguero moment for Man City in 2011, maybe 2012, when Man City won their first title, was so big was because it happened on ESPN, and because it happened on ESPN like live, it was all over SportsCenter for the next month. I just think we don't the way that because the Premier League is on NBC, a different kind of property. The way that Fox has the Euro tournaments now, it's not front and center on ESPN, and that is just kind of the way that our society kind of just consumes sports. So that's a little bit of a problem. I mean, it is a bit of a niche sport. MLS moving exclusively to Apple TV, it's on them to go get the best TV, the best money that a contract is a company is willing to give them. That's what they want to do. Uh, I don't necessarily care about that. It's not going to really help as far as growing the game, but they want to prioritize that. That's fine. That said, I don't want them to have any kind of say whatsoever in what U.S. soccer does going forward. Period. That's been a toxic relationship, marriage, maybe divorce, for way too long. And I just think whether or not it's been team selection, whether or not it's been not even our team, just like the Olympics team, just we haven't been able to get away from that forever. Uh, and the domestic league, to my opinion, is not growing the game. There's been a lot of fights over the last few years that they've been, to going to court to stop other leagues from forming underneath them. At the USL level or the other level, behind that. And there's just we don't do promotion relegation. They've been fighting that because to me it's been about finding a way to just have owners where you don't really have to worry about losing your investment. If you get relegated, that becomes not necessarily a great investment to have. And because of that, it's closed. And I don't think the competition is necessarily that great. Maybe the competition improves when they get into playoffs, and the playoffs are fun. It can be an exciting league in that way, but I don't think it's good a league when it comes to the international game. Now there have been a couple of players that have been able to go to the MLS and actually do fine internationally. Canada's got a couple has a bunch of MLS players that have had a good Copa for them. I think maybe even the player that scored for Uruguay was a former MLS player. But I just think we need to think of it. What is best for U.S. soccer? Is it to also grow the MLS as much as possible, or can two things coexist at the same time? Or is each success reliant on each other? I guess I can argue. I don't really think it is. So I would like that to be looked at. Because another thing too is we need to stop this idea of having two camps. So we have a camp for Europe-based players, and then we have camp. People call it Camp Cupcake, but we have a second camp. Whether or not it's in January or February, maybe just don't have that as a camp, or maybe do that. Maybe have that as the Olympic team camp. I don't really know how you would do it, but stop having separate camps. I don't like it. Uh, because also the way we have separated between a Nations League team, which is what basically our A team is, when you only play 2 games, and that's our quote unquote cup, versus a Gold Cup, where we basically play C team players to just give people caps that probably don't really deserve any serious attention. That if they perform well, actually end up making our World Cup team. Not to really name names. So that's been a big problem for me as well. So uh, I don't really like that. So again, what is the objective here? Is it just to be just get out of the group? Should be ambitious to strive for a semifinal. Countries that have hosted this thing, South Korea made it to a semifinal. Uh, Turkey's made it to a semifinal before. Morocco just made it to a semifinal. It's not it's not out of the question. It takes a lot of things to go your way, a lot of bounces to go your way. But is it something more? Is it about building a team that can threaten that and do that routinely? Is it about growing the game, making it more accessible? Stop making youth soccer a hobby for wealthy parents and kids to travel on weekends, staying at different hotels, having fun with that in different respective regions. Can you open the game up more? Can youth coaches focus more on first touch, close ball control, not necessarily sprinting with the ball? Can we find a way to have players that recognize what to do in tight spaces, uh, when to recognize when it passes on or not? Can we look at that? So another thing too is maybe don't hire a USMNT coach that burns bridges. That is hired by their brother, that plays the most rigid, complex style that the game really allows for. Uh, Also, that seems to misprofile players and doesn't ever change. So there are ways to make this better. And the real question to me is, does Alexi Laws, to call someone out, uh, does he actually want that goal, or does he just want the bare minimum to achieve what I laid out? Because doing the former would require serious changes, and changes that quote unquote powers might be would probably not like. So, Berhalter in or out, we still have a problem with outreach and potential. But Berhalter is a problem. And again, we need a puzzle solver, a problem solver, not a motivator or babysitter. And I don't think we have that. We have ample evidence to suggest that we don't. Another thing too is he doesn't have shame. Bruce Arena, he doesn't share Bruce Arena's shame. Bruce Arena, when he didn't qualify for the World Cup, resigned that day, or that night, because he failed on his goal. He failed on the minimum standard to have the U.S. qualify for World Cup. Here, the minimum standard would be not even to get to a semifinal. Just hey, don't get grouped. You know, uh, Panama was. I mean, Panama, Costa Rica, at least even gave things a go. Canada is able to advance. Uh, it's just it's not good enough. We need to have higher standards than what we have as well. Where oh, if you got out of the group, good job. That's all we really ask for. Why can't the standards be higher? I don't understand. Everyone wants to talk always about American exceptionalism. Why can't that apply to this of all things? Uh, but I don't want it to be out of necessarily ego or narcissism. I think we can just ask. We can ask more for people. We can ask for more accountability. How about that? So, and it's shown over time and time. He's just not been able to beat teams that are at a minimum of equal or better talent than he is. Other managers are able to do that. We haven't been able to craft a way of playing that can when it's not working for us, if plan A isn't working for us, it's not plan A with maybe a different player pool. It needs to be finding a way to change kind of systems. Now, what's funny enough is he did kind of change a little bit versus Panama. He did change a little bit towards with Uruguay towards very end. What we saw, McKinney actually had right back. Funny enough, but we didn't experiment with that beforehand. And it's not a case of, oh, you don't want to show your cards too early. You need to give people reps. Um, and I just think by the time we were just doing stuff that it wasn't uh, it was I guess foreign to those players' minds, and also if he does have favorites or has that thing that I was mentioning with Adams, that's a problem too. So I'm not saying a coach needs to be like a massive a hole, but uh, maybe a coach that I don't know is has I guess the same amount of respect and relationship with every player that on his team than just a few. Maybe to me it's very fitting how a lot of the players that I mentioned a little bit called out here wanted Greg Berhalter to return, and was it because they kind of knew that they had it easy with him? There could be something about that as well. I'll mention how Tim Weah getting the red. He spoke positive of Greg beforehand. Uh, but then again, also when you know he's going to return, you don't really want to say anything negative as well. You kind of put into a little of a prison situation. So I don't really know if I want to go there. I just think it is time to move on. We have 2 years to maybe do it, and there have been some talks about where to go. Klopp, Pep, and Tuchel's all probably unlikely. I have seen the idea of make Jurgen Klopp, give him the idea to not necessarily be U.S. coach, but to actually be in charge of the federation. That would be lovely because I don't feel we have serious people there. That's another thing too. Like it's too easy to look at Greg Berhalter as kind of the problem. The people that hired him are the problem, uh, and the people that have been defending that hire, that go on TV, have been the problem. Uh, the people that have been worried more about access than actually reporting, reporting their own personal opinions or I guess their truthful opinions. That's been a problem as well. So it's not just on the coach, but speaking of the coach, where can they maybe look? There is someone at Hoffenheim, Pellegrini Matasato. American, actually he's done fairly well with Hoffenheim. He was with I think Stuttgart before, and then moved to Hoffenheim, and I think Hoffenheim have a European spot in the Bundesliga last year. I've always wondered about Patrick Vieira. Now he's not done an international job before, and his job at Palace was kind of iffy, but he's always been talked about and praised with the way that he's able to work with younger players and develop them. Probably not going to happen, but I've always kind of looked at that. Columbus Crew have Nance that has impressed MLS, but apparently they do play good football. I don't really know how much I love about that. There is BJ Callahan who just took the job for Nashville, but I'm gonna throw out Harvey Renard, the former Saudi Arabia coach, won African Cup of Nations 2 times with different countries. One was Zambia, and I forget who the other one was. Was recently coaching the French Women World Cup, and they didn't necessarily win, but they got to a quarterfinals. He's long been praised for being tactically flexible, loads of experience. We saw what he did with Saudi Arabia, beating Argentina. Now they weren't able. That was basically their World Cup. They weren't able to advance in the group, but at least they gave themselves a go and a respectful go. Uh, he's got loads of experience managing different teams at different levels, which that is what we need. We don't need someone to just come in and just be new at this, or to be someone that is just trying to figure this out on the go. Which is, it feels like Greg Berhalter looks at this job as like a fun little hobby for him to kind of learn on the go. We need someone a little bit more serious if we are going to take this seriously. Uh, another manager that I've thought about. Now, again, he hasn't actually done the international job, but I don't know how much different it would be. Is I look at the way that the games, the way the international game is, and look at the way the player pool that we have. Honestly, Sean Dyche isn't the worst idea. The Everton coach. Now, would he leave that job or not? It's probably not going to be where they go either. But and he's not everyone's cup of tea, but he's very good at doing a 4-4-2 that just works everywhere he goes. And maybe it would be the prettiest at football, but I think it would be better than what we have. I also think he's better technically than he's shown. Um, that could maybe be an idea. Ancelotti was about to leave Real Madrid. He was rumored to go to the Brazil job. Could he possibly, give it a go? I don't really know. Klopp's been kind of thrown around by people on Fox. I don't really know if that's going to happen. I do like the idea of trying to maybe make him even not necessarily the coach, but actually someone in charge of running the whole thing. Uh, but the powers that be maybe we don't like that. So I don't really know. That's just kind of where we are with the U.S. And that's probably the last time I'm going to do pod on the U.S. for a little bit. So didn't go. I wasn't really expecting them to do the magical, but getting into the quarterfinals, playing facing a Colombia or an Ecuador, and at least having a chance to play a serious game, serious knockout game would have at least been fun to cover and talk about again. It would have been fun to watch Gio Reyna again. If nothing else, he really did impress me. I just feel like we can play him in multiple ways. To be honest, and I didn't really love how every time it felt like Berhalter wanted to make a change, it seemed to be to sub him off. At least there's some of that. There is a core of this group that is still crazy, crazy young, and they've got experience playing together. If nothing else, that's going to give us a leg up as well, regardless of if we stick with Berhalter or not. If we're going to stick with Berhalter, at the very minimum, we need to find him an assistant that goes about the game differently. That can look at tactics a little bit better. That can make better second half decisions. Uh, Let Berhalter be the face of it. Let someone else actually be the brain of it. Uh, at a minimum, we need to do that. But we've got 2 years now this hasn't gone well. The last time I talked with Rex about this was about a year ago, when after, or maybe even 2 years ago, after we beat Canada in the nations final, and we knew coming into this that this was going to be a World Cup preview, a bit of a warm up, and this was an opportunity to kind of see what we had, and if we weren't able to if we weren't able to advance, that would have been the bare minimum standard to get someone else, and that is what happened. Circumstances played into it, yes, but I like the idea that circumstances played into it, because had we been able to advance out of the group and then drawn Colombia or Ecuador and gotten thumped there, I don't think anything would have changed either. We would have basically done that's because that's what we did in the World Cup. I like the idea that he was given a wrench, he was given a curveball. Okay, you've got a red card, you've got to try to manage that. Can you do that? Uh, I don't think we made the right decisions there, and got unlucky. But also, you had the moment to beat Uruguay and weren't able to just do anything there either. I mentioned how there was a stat with a crossing that I forgot about, so I'll mention it here. We were 0 for 9. Uruguay had 17 crosses, and I think they had like 6 total. We were 0 for 9 when I think we averaged like 25 in our first game versus Bolivia. We averaged closer to 30 every game in Qatar. We were 0 for 9. So why was that? Well, one, we're playing Christian Pulisic and Gio Reyna as a quote unquote wide players who aren't really known for playing that far. Christian not known for playing on the right. And I thought when Christian was getting it, he was trying to go for goal himself. Gio Reyna is not someone that's really going to cross the ball much either, playing a little bit out of position, a little higher up. So I think that kind of played a role into it a little bit as well. We weren't able to Scally wasn't able to bomb forward and get really any crosses in either. Anthony Robinson was able to do it a little bit, but it was few and bare between. So I think that was telling to me. That just showed it wasn't a normal game that we would normally play. And I don't necessarily know if that was the game plan or not, but that was surprising. So anyways, I'm kind of done with a little of my ranting, and that's the last thing I'll say about U.S. soccer, and that'll be it. So until then, USA squatting, and stop recording.